Hello. Hi guys. I hope the audio is coming fine. Hi linguist. Hi. Yeah, long time no see. Hi Rakshit. Yeah, live now. Thank you for joining the live stream. It's been many days since we discussed this book. I was really missing this book. And today we are going to discuss the chapter called Shakti and Shakta, but we are going to do a huge recap, okay? Because if you all remember the last time we discussed this book, we had finished this chapter after reading about I think about quarter or half of it. But since I'm not an expert on this and most of you all listening to it are also basically kids, so I don't think we retained too much information about that from that chapter, except some general notions. Okay, so in order to get the full context of the chapter, we will need to do a gigantic recap of it. So why not start it from the beginning itself? M. Shastri is here. Hi, M. Shastri. Did you read Rajashinandi Adhyatmikta? No, not yet. I will. After I finish this book by Sir John Woodruff and some of the books I have due, Brahma Puran, History of Indian Philosophy, then. Hey bro, how was your day? Yeah, it was good. I released a cover of the song. Oh, you're not Bengali, right? You probably won't know about it. It's a song called Ude Jak from the film Uma. I did the programming, vocals, everything, and I released it today from my music channel. Ram Ram Bhaiya, Ram Ram, Harish Ravi, Harsh Ravi. Okay, let's start. Okay, it's since I bought this mic stand, I have not read any book from here. So it's weird that it's basically in front of my face. Okay, let's see where to keep this mic now. This is weird. Earlier I used to keep it somewhere else. Okay, देखते हैं कहीं और रखना पड़ेगा. Lol. Okay, so Shakti and Shakta. Let's do an entire recap, and the book is called Shakti and Shakta, and this chapter itself is called Shakti and Shakta. So we will get, I think, a large gist of the entire concept from this chapter itself. I hope the audio is fine. Yeah. Are bro, I was a drummer in a band in Kolkata. Oh, acha, nice. Oh, great. Pranay, hello from Delhi. Hello. Shakti, who is in herself pure consciousness, Chidrupini, is also the mother of nature and is nature itself, born of the creative play of her thought. The Shakti faith or worship of Shakti is, I believe, in some of its essential features, one of the oldest and most widespread religions in the world. Though very ancient, it is yet in its essentials and in the developed form in which we know it today, harmonious with some of the teachings of modern philosophy and science. Not that this is necessarily a test of its truth. It may be here noted that in the West, and in particular in America and England, a large number of books are now being published on new thought, willpower, vitalism, creative thought, right thought, self-unfoldment, secret of achievement, mental therapeutics, and the like. The principles of which are essentially those of some forms of Shakti sadhana, both higher and lower. Very, very true. Very well said. And this is written in 1891, I think, or 1901. So it was pretty advanced what he observed. There are books of disguised magic as how to control or vashikarana by making them buy what they do not want, how to secure quote-unquote affection and so forth, which, notwithstanding some hypocrisies, are in certain respects on the same level as the Tantric Savara, as a low class of books on magic are called. Savara or Chandala are amongst the lowest of men. The ancient and at the same time distinguishing character of the faith of Shaktism is instanced by temple worship. The old Vedic worship was generally in the home or in the open by the river, and in the cult of images of Linga, Yoni, neither of which it is said were part of the original Vedic practice. The worship of Devis and of the Magna Mater, the great Vedic Devta, was the male Indra, and also other matters of both doctrine and practice. Many years ago, Edward Sellon, with the aid of a learned Orientalist of the Madras Civil Service, attempted to learn its mysteries, but for reasons which I need not here discuss, did not view them from the right standpoint. He, however, compared the Shaktas with the Greek telestica or dynamica, the mysteries of Dionysus, which was quote-unquote fire born in the cave of initiation. With the Shakti Puja, the Shakti Sodhana with the purification shown in Dehankarville's antique Greek vases. and after referring to the frequent mention of this ritual in the writings of the Jews and other ancient authors, concluded that it was evident that we had still surviving in India in the Shakti worship a very ancient, if not the most ancient form of mysticism in the whole world. Whatever be the value to be given to any particular piece of evidence, he was right in his general conclusion. Because when we throw our minds back upon the history of this worship, we see stretching away into the remote and fading past the figure of the mighty mother of nature, most ancient among the ancients, the Adya Shakti, the dusk divinity, many-breasted, crowned with towers whose veil is never lifted, Isis. Quote unquote, the one who is all that has been, is, and will be, Kali, Hathor, Cybele, the cow mother goddess Ida, Tripura Sundari, the Ionic mother, Tef, the spouse of Su, by whom he meaning he with capital H, Tef, the spouse of Su, by whom he affects the birth of all things, Aphrodite, Astarte, in whose groves the Baalim were set, Babylonian Militta, Buddhist Tara, the Mexican Ish, Hellenic Osea, the consecrated, the free and pure, African Salambo, who like Parvati roamed the mountains, Roman Juno, Egyptian Bast, the flaming mistress of life, of thought, of love, whose festival was celebrated with wanton joy, the Assyrian mother Sukkot Benoth, northern Freya, Mula Prakriti, Semele, Maya, Ishtar, Saitic Nath, mother of the gods, eternal deepest ground of all thing, Kundali, Guhya Mahabhairavi, and all the rest. Tarama is also Shakti, yes. And yet there are people who allege the tantric cult is modern. To deny this is not to say that there has been or will be no change or development in it. As man changes, so do the forms of his beliefs. An ancient feature of this faith, and one belonging to the ancient mysteries, is the distinction which it draws between the mediate, whose Shakti is awake or prabuddha, and the Pashu, the unillumined or animal, and as Gnostics called him, material man. And actually the word Pashu, as we had learned from the book Introduction to Tantra Shastra, that Pashu does, in Bengali, Pashu just means animals, I think even in other Indian languages. But the animal is not, the Pashu is not just a proper noun, it's just not a random word assigned to animals. An animal is a Pashu, or even many people have Pashu-like characteristics, is when Pashu comes from the word Pasha, meaning they are totally tied up in chains. They have not attained freedom of thought, etc. That's sort of a person, and therefore animals are Pashu. They are servants of their basemost instincts. Hence Pashu, the unillumined or animal, and as the Gnostics called him, material man. The natural, which is the manifestation of the mother of nature, and the spiritual, or the mother as she is in and by herself, are one. But the initiate alone, jiska diksha hua hai, but the initiate alone truly recognizes this unity. He knows himself in all his natural functions as the one consciousness, whether in enjoyment, bhakti, or liberation, mukti. It is an essential part of tantric sadhana that man in general must rise through and by means of nature, and not by an ascetic rejection of her. A profoundly true principle is here involved, whatever has been said of certain applications of it. When Orpheus transformed the old Bacchic cult, it was the purified who, in the beautiful words of Euripides, said, quote unquote, went dancing over the hills with the daughters of Iacchos. I cannot, however, go into this matter in this paper, which is concerned with some general subjects and the ordinary ritual, but the evidence is not limited to mysteries of the Shakti Puja. There are features in the ordinary outer worship which are very old and widespread, as are also other parts of the esoteric teaching. In this connection, a curious instance of the existence, beyond India, of tantric doctrine and practice is here given. The American Indian Maya scripture of the Zunis, called the Popul Vuh, speaks of hurakan or lightning, that is, I am told, Kundali Shakti, of the air tube or white cord, or the Shushumna Nadi, of the twofold air tube, that is Ida and Pingala, and of various bodily centers which are marked by animal glyphs. All this is mentioned in American Indian Maya scripture. Perhaps the Panchatattva ritual followed by some of the adherents of the Tantras is one of the main causes which have operated in some quarters against acceptance of the authority of these scriptures, and as such responsible for the notion that the worship is modern. On the contrary, the usage of wine, meat and so forth itself is very old. There are people who talk of these rites as though they were some entirely new and comparatively modern invention of the Tantra, wholly alien to the spirit and as if practice of the early times. Wholly alien to the spirit and practice of the, as if they are wholly alien to the spirit and practice of the earlier times. If the subject be studied, it will, I think, be found that in this matter, those worshippers who practice these rites, except possibly as to Maithuna, the continuators, they are the continuators of very ancient practices which had their counterparts in the earlier Vedikachara, but were subsequently abandoned, possibly under the influence of Jainism and Buddhism. I say counterpart because I do not mean to suggest that in every respect the rites were the same. In details and as regards, I think some objects in view, they differed. Thus, we find in this Panchatattva ritual a counterpart to the Vedic usage of wine and animal food. As regards wine, we have the partaking of soma. Meat was offered in Mamsataka Shraddha, fish in the Ashtaka Shraddha and Preta Shraddha, and Maithuna as a recognized rite will be found in the Vamadevya Vrata and Maravrata of universally recognized Vedic texts. I see from the alleged and generally unknown Saubhagya Kanda of the Atharva Veda, to which Kalikopanishad and other Tantric Upanishads are said to belong. Quote-unquote Tantric Upanishads are said to belong. Linguist, you need to confirm all these things. Possibly, however, this element of Maithuna may be foreign and imported by Chinachara. So again, as that distinguished scholar Professor Ramendra Sundara Trivedi has pointed out in his Vichitra Prasanga, the mudra of Panchatattva corresponds with the Purodasa cake of the Soma and other yagas. The present rule of abstinence from wine and in some cases meat is due, I believe, to the original Buddhism. It is so-called tantrics who follow in and for their ritual only the earlier practice. It is true that the Samhita of Usana says wine is not to be drunk, given or taken, madhyam apeyam adeyam agrahayam. But the yet greater Manu states, there is no wrong in the eating of meat or the drinking of wine. Na mamsa bhakshane dosho na madhye. Oh my God. Though he rightly adds, as many now do, that abstention therefrom is productive of great fruit. Nivrittisu mahaphala. Okay, if you really want mahaphala, then you need to stay away from all this. But otherwise, dosh nahi hai. The tantric practice does not allow extra ritual or useless drinking. Vritha pana. Okay, vritha mat pan karte phiro. This is great. Shaolin moves have Indra, Vrajra, right. Even Bali is there in Vajrayana, I see. Indra is there in all three, yeah. Vajrayana worship Indra, yeah, right. Further, it is a common error to confound two distinct things, namely belief and practice, and the written records of it. These latter, the written records of these things, may be comparatively recent, whilst that of which they speak, the things that they are speaking about, they may be very ancient. When I speak of the ancient past of this faith, I am not referring merely to the writings which exist today, which are called tantras. Okay, so the writings are called tantras. These are composed generally in a simple Sanskrit by men whose objective it was to be understood rather than to show skill in literary ornament. This simplicity is a sign of age, but at the same time, it is Laukika and not Arsha Sanskrit. Arsha Sanskrit. Moreover, there are statements in them which, unless interpolations, fix the limits of their age. I am not speaking of the writings themselves, but of what they say. The faith that they embody, or at least its earlier forms, may have existed for many ages before it was reduced to writing amongst the kulas or family folk, who received it as handed down by tradition, paramparya, just as did the Vedic Gotras. That such beliefs and practices, like all other things, have had their development in course of time is also a likely hypothesis. A vast number of tantras have disappeared probably forever. Of those which survive, a large number are unknown. Most of those which are available are of fragmentary character. Even if these did appear later than some other Shastras, this would not, on Indian principles, affect their authority. According to such principles, the authority of a scripture is not determined by its date, and this is sense. Why, it is asked, should something said 1000 years ago be on that account only truer than what was said 100 years ago? It is held that whilst the teaching of the Agama is very existent, particular tantras are constantly being revealed and withdrawn as well. There is no objection against a tantra merely because it was revealed today. When it is said that Shiva spoke the tantras or Brahma wrote the celebrated Vaishnava poem called the Brahma Samhita, it is not meant that Shiva and Brahma materialized and took a reed and wrote on birch bark or leaf, but that the divine consciousness to which men gave these and other names inspired a particular man to teach or to write a particular doctrine or work touching the eternally existing truth. This again does not mean that there was anyone whispering in his ear, but that these things arose in his consciousness. Fair enough. What is done in this world is done through man. There is a profounder wisdom than is generally acknowledged in the saying, God helps those who help themselves. Inspiration too never ceases. But how, it may be asked, are we to know that what is said is right and true? The answer is by its fruits. Fair, so fair. The authority of a Shastra is determined by the question whether Siddhi is gained through its provisions or not. It is not enough that Shiva Vacha is writ in it. The test is that of Ayurveda. A medicine is a true one if it cures. The Indian test of everything is actual experience. It is from Samadhi that the ultimate proof of Advaita Vada is sought. How is the existence of kalpas known? It is said they have been remembered as by the Buddha, who is recorded as having called to mind 91 past kalpas. There are arguments in favor of rebirth, but that which is tendered as real proof is both the facts of ordinary daily experience, which can, it is said, be explained only on the hypothesis of pre-existence, as also actual recollection by self-developed individuals of their previous lives. Modern Western methods operate through magnetic sleep producing quote-unquote regression of memory. Rocus CAD, okay, citation दिया गया है. CAD Rocus les vies successives and Lancelin la vie posthume. Age, however, is not wholly without its uses, because one of the things to which men look to see in a Shastra is whether it has been accepted or quoted in works of recognized authority. like even today's scholars, कितना citation है तुम्हारा Google Scholar में, वो भी important है. वो ही I think is one of the most important things to judge how correct your thoughts are. It may not be right, but that is how the norm is. Wait, sorry for the interruption. मुझे एक टावल डालना पड़ता है यहाँ पे, नहीं तो टेबल जो शार्प है यहाँ पे इतना, उससे बुक कवर में स्क्रैचेस आ जाता है. पहले मैं ऐसा नहीं रखता था, मेरा ब्रह्मपुराण वॉल्यूम 1 पूरा स्क्रैचेस में भर गया है. अभय हाय, नमस्कार. So age, however, is not wholly without its uses, because one of the things to which men look to see in a Shastra is whether it has been accepted or quoted in works of recognized authority. कितना citation है. Such a test of authenticity can, of course, only be afforded after the lapse of considerable time, but it does not follow that a statement is in fact without value because, owing to its having been made recently, it is not possible to subject it to such a test. Yes, because if a paper is written just yesterday, it might not have too many citations. That does not mean that the paper is bullshit. This is why the way in which this question of age and authority is looked at, on Indian principles. A wide survey of what is called Orthodox Hinduism today, whatever be its origins, will disclose the following results. Which is, Vedanta in the sense of Upanishad as its common doctrinal basis, though variously interpreted, and a great number of differing disciplines or modes of practice by which the Vedanta are realized in actual fact.
We must carefully distinguish these two. Okay? Thus, the Vedanta says Soham, which is Hamsa. Hakara is one wing. Sakara is the other wing. When stripped of both wings, she, Tara, is Kamakala. Tantraja Tantra. This is mentioned in Tantraja Tantra. No. Tantraraja Tantra. The acharas set forth the means by which Soham is to be translated into actual fact for the particular sadhaka. Sadhana comes from the root sadh, which means effort or striving or accomplishment. Effort for and towards what? The answer for those who desire it is liberation from every form in the hierarchy of forms which exist as such, because consciousness has so limited itself as to obscure the reality which it is and which Soham or Shivoham affirms. This sounds like the Nietzsche book I'm reading. I'm reading a book called On Truth and Untruth. It's a collection of Nietzsche's essays on truth, etc. from in the late 1800s. In 1872 to 1888. Fascinating. The collection was originally published in 1896, but absolutely mind-boggling. It's so thought-provoking, so thought-triggering, so stimulating. I'm reading it every day before going to sleep, and it's giving my brains such stimulation that I'm seeing great dreams even. It's absolutely flipping so many of my notions, and combined with the other stuff I'm reading from Hindu philosophy, I'm having absolutely a beautiful time in my life right now. And why should man liberate himself from material forms? Because it is said that way only lasting happiness lies, though a passing yet fruitful bliss may be had here by those who identify themselves with active Brahman, Shakti. It is the actual experience of this declaration of Soham, which in its fundamental aspect is Veda, knowledge, Vid, or actual spiritual experience. For in the monistic sense, to truly know everything is to be that thing. This Veda or experience is not to be had sitting down thinking vaguely on the great ether, Akasha, and doing nothing. Man must transform himself, that is, act, in order to know. Therefore, the watchword of the Tantras is Kriya, or action. I love it. I love this. They are arguing from first principles. Heard rumors somewhere that naked women were made to stay in dry agriculture fields to seduce Indra so that he makes it rain. I see. When Indra was actually worshipped, that was in the Vedic period. Okay, when Vedas had not come in contact too much with the non-Vedic cultures of the rest of India. So back then, a naked woman would not be a sexual object really. So it's not that the nakedness of the women was going to call Indra anyway. They were barely wearing any clothes anyway. Himanta Biswa Sharma, oh my god, what a speech he gave. I challenge any Bengal politician to give that speech even in 15 years. That's not going to happen even if BJP comes to power. The next question is what Kriya should be adopted towards this end of Jnana. This end goal of Jnana. Tanyate vistaryate jnanam anena iti tantram. According to this derivation of the word tantra from the root tan, to spread, it is defined as the shastra by which knowledge or jnana is spread. Mark the word jnana. The end of the practical methods with which these shastras employ is to spread Vedantic jnana. It is here we find that variety which is so puzzling to those who have not gone to the root of the religious life of India. The end, the final goal, is substantially one. The means to that end necessarily vary according to knowledge, capacity, and temperament, obviously. But here again we may analyze the means into two main divisions, namely Vedic and Tantric, to which may be added a third, or the mixed, Misra. The one body of Hinduism reveals, as it were, a double framework, represented by the Vedic and Tantrika acharas, which have in certain instances been mingled. The word Tantra by itself simply means, as I have already said, treatise, and not necessarily a religious scripture. Hence there are tantric ways of worshipping Lord Ram as well. When it has the latter significance, it may mean, when it is in fact a religious scripture, it may mean the scripture of several divisions of worshippers who vary in doctrine and practice. Thus, there are tantras of Shaivas, Vaishnavas, and Shaktas, and of various subdivisions of these. So, amongst the Shaivas, there are the Shaivas of the Shaiva Siddhanta, the Advaita Shaiva of the Kashmir school, Pashupatas, and a multitude of other sects which have their tantras. If tantric, quote unquote, tantric be used as a meaning and as meaning an adherent of the Tantra Shastra, then the word in any particular case is without defining meaning. A man to whom the application is given may be a worshipper of any of the five devtas, Surya, Ganesha, Vishnu, Shiva, Shakti, and of any of the various sampradayas worshipping that devta with varying doctrine and practice. The term is a confusing one, though common practice compels its use. So far as I know, those who are named tantrics do not themselves generally use this term, but call themselves Shaktas, Shaivas, and the like, of whatever sampradaya they happen to be. Linguist is saying, Dada, this one in Buddhism Tantra, there literally was a deity called Manjusri, which means Pragyan. I see. Okay, guys, do you all know any history of the word, of the name, Indian name Shipra? Is she a goddess as well? I recently came to know that Shipra is a Middle Eastern god as well. I think in the Old Testament or in Christianity probably. Do you all know anything about this? No, Vinay, I don't know anything about that. Abhay, yeah. Assamese is almost understandable by anyone who understands Bengali. Again, Tantra is the name of only one class of scripture, one class of scripture, one type of scripture, followed by tantrics. But that can include all the sampradayas. There are others, namely Nigamas, Agamas, Yamals, Damars, Uddishas, Kakshaputas, and so forth. None of these names are used to describe the adherents of these shastras except, so far as I am aware, Agama in the use of the term Agamvadin and Agamanta in the descriptive name of Agamanta Shaiva. I give later a list of these scriptures as contained in the various Agamas. If we summarize them shortly under the term Tantra Shastra, or preferably Agama, then we have four main classes of Indian scripture, namely Veda, Samhita, Brahmana, Upanishad, Agama or Tantra Shastra, Purana, Smriti. Of these shastras, the authority of the Agama or Tantra Shastra has been denied in modern times. I see. This view may be shown to be erroneous by reference to shastras of admitted authority. It is spoken of as the fifth Veda. Kulluka Bhatta, the celebrated commentator on Manu, says, Shruti is twofold, Vedic and Tantric. Vediki Tantriki Chaiva Dvividha Shruti Kirtita. This refers to the mantra portion of the Agamas. In the great Vaishnava Shastra, the Srimad Bhagavata, Bhagavan says, My worship is of three kinds, Vedic, Tantric and Misra. And that in Kali Yuga, Keshava is to be worshipped according to the injunction of Tantra. Oh my god. The Devi Bhagavata speaks of the Tantra Shastra as a Vedanga. It is cited as authority in the Ashtavimsati Tattva of Raghunandana, who prescribes for the worship of Durga as before him had done Sridatta, Harinatha, Vidyadhara, and many others. Some of these and other references are given in Mahamahopadhyaya Yadaveshwara Tarkaratna's Tantre Prachinotto. The book is called The Antiquity of Tantra in English. Someone had pointed out in our comment section. In the Sahitya Samhita of Ashwin 1317. The Tara, so that name is Mahamahopadhyaya Yadaveshwara Tarkaratna. It's a Bengali name. What would be the Bengali Uchcharan? Mahamohopadhyay Jadaveshwar Tarkaratna. In Tantrir Prachinotto in the Sahitya Samhita of Ashwin 1317. The Tara Pradipa and other tantric works say that in the Kali Yuga, the Tantrika and not the Vedika Dharma is to be followed. the Tantrika, not the Vedika dharma is to be followed. This objection about the late character and therefore unauthoritativeness of the Tantra Shastras, so called, generally, I do not speak of any particular form, it has been taken by the Indians from their European gurus. According to the Shakta scriptures, Veda in its wide sense does not only mean Rig, Yajus, Sama, Atharva as now published, but comprise these together with the generally unknown and unpublished Uttarakanda of the Atharva Veda called Saubhagya, with the Upanishads attached to this. Shayana's commentary is written on the Purvakanda. These are said, though I have not yet verified the fact, to be 64 in number. Some of these, such as Advaita Bhava, Kaula, Kalika, Tripura, Tara, Aruna, Upanishads, and Bhavrichopanishad, Bhavopanishad, I have published as the 11th volume of Tantric texts. Aruna means she who is red. Redness, Lahityam, is Vimarsha. Okay, M. Shastri is saying Shipra, or okay, Shipra, or Shipra is very much an Indic goddess. Her name is mentioned in the Rig Veda. She is named after the river in MP. I see. So can you all just Google and see if there's any connection? Because Jordan Peterson was talking about a goddess called Shipra in his discussion of the Exodus. I may also hear after my reader to the Kaulacharya Satyananda's commentary on the great Isha Upanishad. Included also in Veda, according to the same view, are the Nigamas, Agamas, Yamals, and Tantras. From these all other Shastras which explain the meaning of Artha of Veda, such as Purana and Smriti, also Itihasa and so forth, are derived. All these Shastras constitute what is called many-millioned Shatakoti Samhita, which are developed, the one from the other, as it were, an unfolding series. In the Tantric Samgraha called Sarvollasha by the Sarvavidya Siddha Sarvanandanatha, the latter cites authority in Narayani Tantra to show that from Nigama came Agama. Okay. Here I pause to note that the Sammohana says that Kerala Sampradaya is Dakshina and follows Veda or the Veda Margastha, whilst Gauda, to which Sarvanandanatha belonged, which is basically the Bengal area, they follow the Vama and they follow the Nigama. Hence, apparently, the preeminence is given to Nigama. He then says, from Agama came Yamal, from Yamal came the 4 Vedas, from Vedas came the Puranas, from Puranas came Smriti, and from Smriti came all the Shastras. There are, he says, so who is saying this? This is being said by Sarvasiddhya Sarvanandanatha. There are, he says, 5 Nigamas and 64 Agamas. 4 Yamals are mentioned, which are said to give the gross form, Sthula Rupa. As some may be surprised to learn that the 4 Vedas came from the Yamals, that is, were Antargata of the Yamals, which literally means what is uniting or comprehensive. I subjoin the Sanskrit verse from the Narayani Tantra. Okay, now forgive my bad Sanskrit pronunciations. And it will take a lot of time to get the word. Of course, it's too small. संस्कृत जो कि कठिन है वही और भी छोटा से छोटा फॉन्ट में दिया है. ब्रह्मयामल संभूतम सामवेदमतम शिवे रुद्रयामल संजात ऋग्वेदो परमो महान विष्णुयामल संभूतो यजुर्वेद कुलेश्वरी शक्तियामल संभूतम अथर्व परमम महत. Some tantras are called by opposing sects Veda Viruddhani, opposed to Veda, which of course those who accept them deny, just as the commentary of the Nitya Shodha Shikarnava speaks of the Pancharatrin as Veda Bhrashta. That some sects were originally Avaidika is probable, but in process of time, various amalgamations of scriptural authority, belief and practice took place, and this is why, regardless of whether you are a believer of God or of the faith, Hinduism or not, you have to respect Hinduism because of this forever amalgamating nature of the Hindu civilization, which is both Vedic, Brahmanic, and pre-Vedic, pre-Brahmanic, whatever name you want to give it. Mainly all the religions that exist inside the Akhand Bharat region. Whether we accept or not this theory, according to which the agamas and kindred and the familial shastras are given authority with the 4 Vedas, we have to accept the facts. What are the facts? As I have said, on examination, the one body of Hinduism reveals, as it were, a double framework. I am now looking at the matter from an outside point of view, which is not that of the Shakta worshipper. We find on the one hand that the 4 Vedas with their Samhitas, Brahmans and Upanishads, and on the other, what has been called the 5th Veda, that is Nigama, Agama and similar Shastras, and certainly especially Tantric Upanishads attached to the Saubhagya Kanda of the Atharva Veda. There are Vedic and Tantric Kalpasutras and Shuktas, such as the Tantrika Devi and Matsya Shuktas. As a counterpart of the Brahma Sutras, we have the Shakti Sutras of Agastya. Then there is both Vedic and Tantric ritual, such as the 10 Vedic Samskaras and the Tantric Samskaras, such as Abhisheka, Vedic and Tantric initiation, Upanayana and Diksha, Vedic and Tantric Gayatri, the Vedic Om, the so-called Tantric Bijas such as Ring, Vedika Guru and Deshika Guru, and so forth. This dualism may be found carried into other matters as well, such as medicine, law, writing. So whilst the Vedic Ayurveda employed generally vegetable drugs, the Tantrics used metallic substances. A counterpart of the Vedika Dharampatni was the Shaiva wife, that is, she who is given by desire, Kama. I have already pointed out the counterparts of Panchatattva in the Vedas. Some allege a special form of Tantric script, at any rate, in Gauda Desha, in the Bengal region. Some allege a special form of Tantric script, at any rate, in the Gauda Desha, and so forth. What is the meaning of all this? It is not at present possible to give a certain answer. The subject has been so neglected and is so little known. Before tendering any conclusions with any certainty of their correctness, we must examine the Tantric texts which time has spared. It will be readily perceived, however, that if there be such a double frame as I suggest, it indicates that there were originally 2 sources of religion, one of which, possibly in some respects the older, that incorporated parts of and in time largely superseded the other, the newer one. And this is what the Tantrics impliedly allege in their views as to the relation to the 4 Vedas and Agamas. If they are not both of authority, why should such reverence be given to the Deshika Gurus and to Tantrika Diksha? Probably there were many Avaidika cults, not without a deep and ancient wisdom of their own, obviously, that is, cults outside the Vedic region, Vedabahya, which in the course of time adopted certain Vedic rites such as Homa, absolutely, I think makes sense. The Vedikas in their own turn taking up some of the Avaidika practices, absolutely, that's where they got the idol worshipping from. It may be that some Brahmanas joined these so-called Anarya Sampradayas, just as we find today Brahmanas officiating for low castes and being called by their name, absolutely, exactly. And this is why I've given up on trying to apologize for Raja Ram Mohan Roy or Brahmo Samaj in general. The 2 papers that I read recently from our channel, one discussing Raja Ram Mohan Roy's debate with something Shastri on idol worship, and the other showing how Brahmo Samaj spread Aryan invasion theory to come up to basically draw a parallel between them meaning the elite upper middle class Brahmins and Christianity, between Veda and Christianity. I now know what I need to know. I no longer need any cool nice quotes from Raja Ram Mohan Roy to apologize for him. Although I would say he probably was a necessary evil. We do not know what the times were like, how bad the religious Hindus in authority around were. Maybe we'll never know. There are arguments on both sides. But if at all he was needed, he was a necessary evil, that I will say. At length, the Shastras of the two cults were given at least equal authority. The Vedic practice then largely disappeared, surviving chiefly both in the Smartha rites of today and as embedded in the ritual of the Agamas. These are speculations to which I do not definitely commit myself. They are merely suggestions which may be worth consideration when search is made for the origin of the Agamas. If they be correct, then in this as in other cases, the beliefs and practices of the soil have been upheld until today against the incoming cults of those so-called Aryas who followed the Vedic rites and who in their turn influenced the various religious communities without the Vedic fold. And so, in that conversation, today's Hinduism happened, and everyone accommodated everyone. Everyone amalgamated with everyone. That's the main thing. Like, if any Kannadiga person is here, they will know that the two Daivas shown in Kantara, Guliga and Panjuli, the story goes that even there used to be fights among Panjuli and Guliga Daiva. They had an antagonistic relationship, and that was probably in the pre-Vedic times, because probably when Vedic civilization reached Mangalore, Tulunadu, then probably the fight between Guliga and Panjuli Daiva was probably said to have ended, because who mediated the end of their fight? That was Devi Durga. The Smarthas of today represent what is generally called the Shrauta side, though in these rites there are mingled many Pauranic ingredients. The Arya Samaja is another present-day representative of the old Vedika Achara, mingled as it seems to me with a modernism which is Puritan and otherwise. The other or tantric side is represented by the general body of present-day Hinduism, and in particular by the various sectarian divisions of Shaivas, Shaktas, Vaishnavas and so forth, which go to its making. Each sect of worshippers has its own tantras. In a previous chapter, I have shortly referred to the tantras of the Shaiva Siddhanta, of the Pancharatra Agama, and of the Northern Shaivism, of which the Malini Vijaya Tantra sets the type. The old fivefold division of worshippers was, according to the Panchopasana, Saura, Ganapatya, Vaishnava, Shaiva, and Shakta, whose Mula Devtas were Surya, Ganapati, Vishnu, Shiva, and Shakti respectively. At the present time, the threefold division, Vaishnava, Shaiva, Shakta, is of more practical importance, as the other two survive only to a limited extent today. In parts of Western India, the worship of Ganesha is still popular, and I believe some Sauras or traces of Sauras here and there exist, especially in Sindh and the Modhera Sun Temple, the Marthand Sun Temple, etc. Let me check some comments here. Dada, if you go to Kanchi, Kamakoti, Kamakshi Mandir, there's a Sthal Purana which explains how Adi Shankara calms her down. I see. Rakshit is saying, actually there are fights for Kshetras. All Daivas have such stories, and in end some deity will come and end the fight, right? Vinay Singh is saying, I am saying that that is pseudoscientific, which is peddled by Shankaracharyas to promote casteism. I am open to other argument which discusses purity and pollution issues to be the origin of casteism and its merit. Up till that time, goddess Kamakshi was a very angry Devi. She was punishing the land with droughts and famines. Sun Temple is 5,000 years old. I see. Please cover the works of C.J. Fuller. Ye kaun hai? C.J. Fuller? Okay. 6 Amnayas are mentioned in the Tantras. Sadamnaya. Okay. 6 Amnayas are mentioned in the Tantras. Sadamnaya. These are the 6 faces of Shiva: looking east, Purvamnaya; south, Dakshinamnaya; west, Paschinamnaya; north, Uttaramnaya; upper, Urdhvamnaya; lower and concealed, Adhamnaya. The 6 Amnayas are thus so called according to the order of their origin. They are thus described in the Devyagama, cited in the Tantra Rahasya. Okay, footnote says, see also with some variation, probably due to corrupt text, in Patala 2 of Samayachara Tantra. Okay, quote, The face in the east, that is in the front, is of pearl-like lustre with 3 eyes and crowned by the crescent moon. By this face, I, Shiva, revealed the Devis, Sri Bhuvaneshwari, Triputa, Lalita, Padma, Shulini, Saraswati, Tvarita, Nitya, Vajraprastarini, Annapurna, Mahalakshmi, Lakshmi, Vagvadini, with all their rites and mantras. 2. The southern face is of a yellow color with 3 eyes. By this face I revealed Prasada Sadashiva, Mahaprasada Mantra, Dakshinamurti, Vatuka, Manjughosha, Bhairava, Mrita Sanjivani Vidya, Mrityunjaya, with their rites and mantras. The face in the west, that is at the back, is of the color of a freshly formed cloud. By this face I revealed Gopala, Krishna, Narayana, Vasudeva, Narsimha, Vamana, Varaha, Ramachandra, Vishnu, Harihara, Ganesha, Agni, Yama, Surya, Vidhu, meaning Chandra, and other planets, Garuda, Dikpalas, Hanuman, and other suras, their rites and mantras. All this came from the face in the west. So, Paschimamnaya. The face in the north is blue in color and with 3 eyes. By this face I revealed the Devis, Dakshina Kalika, Mahakali, Guhya Kali, Smashana Kalika, Bhadrakali, Ekajata, Ugratara, Taritni, Katyayani, Chinnamasta, Neela Saraswati, Durga, Jaya Durga, Navadurga, Vashuli, Dhumavati, Vishalakshi, Gauri, Bagalamukhi, Pratyangira, Matamgri, Mahishamardini, their rites and mantras. The upper face in white. By this face I revealed Srimat Tripura Sundari, Tripureshi Bhairavi, Tripura Bhairavi, Smashana Bhairavi, Bhuvaneshi Bhairavi, Satkuta Bhairavi, Annapurna Bhairavi, Panchami, Sodashi, Malini, Valavala, with their rites and mantras. The sixth face, below, is lustrous of many colors and concealed. It is by this mouth that I spoke of Devatasthana, Asana, Yantra, Mala, Naivedya, Balidana, Sadhana, Purascharana, Mantra Siddhi. It is called Ishanam Naya. End quote. The Samayachara, okay, I was pronouncing it wrong. The Samayachara Tantra says that whilst the first 4 amnayas are for the Chaturvarga or Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, the upper Urdhvamnaya and lower Adhamnaya are for liberation only. The Sammohana Tantra, chapter 5, first explains Purvamnaya, Dakshinamnaya, Paschimamnaya, Uttaramnaya, Udvamnaya, according to what is called Desha Pariyaya. I am informed that no puja of Adhamnaya is generally done, but that sadhanvaya sambhavas, very high sadhakas, at the door of liberation do nyasa with this 6th concealed face. It is said that Patala Amnaya is Sambhoga Yoga. The Nishkala aspect of Shakti Krama is for Purva, Tripura, for Dakshina, Saura, Ganapatya and Vaishnava, for Paschima, Raudra, Bhairava, for Uttara, Ugra and Apattarini. In Shaiva Karma, the same aspect is for the first Sampatprada and Mahesha, for the second Aghora, Kalika and Vaishnava Darshana, for the third Raudra, Bhairava, Shaiva, for the fourth Kubera, Bhairava, Shaudra, Shaka, and for Urdhvamnaya, Ardhanarisha and Pranava. Niruttara Tantra says that the first 2 amnayas contain rites for the Pashu Sadhaka, See, as to the meaning of this and the other classes of sadhakas, the chapter on Panchatattva ritual, Purvam Nayoditam, Karma Pashavam, Kathitam Priye, and so with the next. The third, or Paschimam Naya, is a combination of Pashu and Veera. Paschima Nayajam Karma Pashu Veera Samasritam. Uttaram Naya is for Veera and Divya Bhava. Uttaram Nayajam Karma Divya Virasritam Priye. The upper Amnaya is for the Divya. Urdhvam Nayoditam Karma Divya Bhavasritam Priye. It adds that even the Divya does sadhana in the cremation ground in Veera Bhava. Oh my god. That is heroic frame of mind and disposition, but he does such worship without Virasana. The Sammohana also gives the classification of the Tantras according to the Amnayas, as also special classifications such as the Tantras of the 6 Amnayas according to Vatukamnaya. As only one text of the Sammohana is available whilst I write, it is not possible to speak with certainty of accuracy as regards all these details. Each of these divisions of worshippers have their own Tantras, as also had the Jainas and Bauddhas. Different sects had their own particular subdivisions and Tantras, of which there are various classifications according to Krantas, Desha Paryaya, Kala Paryaya, and so forth. The Sammohana Tantra mentions 22 different agamas, including Chinagama, a Shakta form, Pashupata, a Shaiva form, Pancharatra, a Vaishnava form, Kapalika, Bhairava, Aghora, Jaina, Buddha, each of which is said there to contain a certain number of Tantras and Upatantras. Wow. According to the Sammohana Tantra, the Tantras according to Kala Paryaya are the 64 Shakta Tantras with 327 Upatantras, 8 Yamals, 4 Damars, 2 Kalpalatas, and several Samhitas, Chudamanis, 100 Chudamanis, Arnavas, Puranas, Upavedas, Kakshaputas, Vimarshini, and Chintamanis. The Shaiva class contains 32 Tantras with its own Yamals, Damars, and so forth. The Vaishnava class contains 75 Tantras with the same, including Kalpas and other Shastras. The Saura class has Tantras with its own Yamals, Uddishas, and other works. And the Ganapatya class contains 30 Tantras with Upatantras, Kalpas, and other Shastras, including 1 Damar and 1 Yamal. The Bauddha class contains Kalpadrumas, Kamadhenus, Shuktas, Kramas, Ambaras, Puranas, and other Shastras. Let me check some comments now. C.J. Fuller has written Anthropology and Imperialism book covers. C.J. Fuller's book Anthropology and Imperialism covers life of H.H. Risley, who published works about caste of Bengal in 1901 and is fully built upon the race theory. Nicholas Dirks also mentions him. Yeah, Nicholas Dirks basically destroys Risley. So C.J. Fuller is talking about Risley. A linguist is saying, भाई सिद्धार्थ गौतम बुद्धा को अग्नि पुराण और पद्म पुराण में विष्णु अवतार लिखा है, उनकी पूजा करते हैं. Linguist, are you sure? Because I am hearing some people say that there were many Buddhas. That was a different Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama Buddha was just one Buddha, and he was much later. Linguist, while referring to people like that, please show some respect. कि हम सिद्धार्थ बुद्धा को नहीं मानेंगे, ये नहीं क्रेज़ है. नहीं भाई, नया आया है क्रेज़ की सिद्धार्थ बुद्ध अवतार, रामभद्राचार्य फालतू. Oh my god. Yes, he has basically covered all of his life and all his influences in his works. Okay. Yeah, but Risley was wrong mainly, no? So why what's the point of reading Fuller then? I'm not challenging you. I don't know about this, so I'm curious why you are asking me to read it. Abhay is saying, but Hindus will need to grab the opportunity with both hands. Okay. Kamadhenu, Shuktas, Kramas, Ambar. Okay. According to the Kularnava and Jnanadipa Tantras, there are 7 acharas, of which the first 4, Veda, Vaishnava, Shaiva, and Dakshina, belong to Pashvachara. Then comes Vama, followed by Siddhanta, in which gradual approach is made to Kaulachara, the reputed highest. Elsewhere, 6 and 9 acharas are spoken of, and different kinds of bhavas, sabhava, vibhava, and deha bhava, and so forth, which are referred to in Bhava Chudamani. An account of the acharas is given in the Haratatva Haratatva Didhiti. See in particular Vishwasara Tantra, chapter 24, and Nitya Tantra and Pranatoshini. The first is the best account. These are mentioned for linguists here. Vedachara is the lowest and Kolachara is the highest. Vedachara is the lowest and Kolachara is the highest. This is mentioned in Kularnava Tantra 2. Their characteristics are given in the 24th Patala of Vishwasara Tantra. The first four belong to Pashvachara. See chapter on Shakta Sadhana, which will come later in this book. And the last three are for Vida and Divya Sadhakas. Summarizing the points of the Vishwasara, listen to the summary now. Points of Vishwasara. A sadhaka in Vedachara should carry out the prescriptions of the Veda, should not cohabit with his wife except in the period following the courses. He should not eat fish and meat on the Parva days. He should not worship the Deva at night. In Vaishnavachara, he follows injunctions, niyama of Vedachara. He must give up eating of flesh. Nitya Tantra says he must not the Veera ritual. He should worship Vishnu. This achara is distinguished from the last by the great endurance of tapas and the contemplation of the Supreme elsewhere. Contemplation of the Supreme elsewhere. In Shaivachara, Vedachara is prescribed with this difference that there must be no slaughter of animals and meditation is on Shiva. Dakshinachara is said to have been practiced by Rishi Dakshinamurti and is therefore so called. This achara is preparatory for the Veera and Divya Bhavas. Meditation is on the Supreme Ishwari after taking Vijaya, hemp, okay? Japa of mantra is done at night. Siddhi is attained by using a rosary of human bone, Mahashankha, at certain places including a Shakti Pitha. Vamachara is approved for Veeras and Divyas. One should be content, Brahmachari, at day and worship with the Panchatattva at night. Panchatattva kramenaiva ratrau devim prapujayet. The statement of Nitya, Panchatatvanu kalpena ratrau devim prapujayet, is, if correctly reported, I think incorrect. This is Veera sadhana, and the Veera should generally only use substitutes when the real tattvas cannot be found. Chakra worship is done. Siddhi is destroyed by revelation thereof. Therefore, the Vama path is hidden. The Siddhantachari is superior to the last The Siddhantachari is superior to the last by his knowledge hidden in the Vedas, Shastras and Puranas like fire in wood, quote unquote, by his freedom from fear of the Pashu. Freedom from fear of the Pashu by his adherence to truth and by his open performance of the Panchatattva ritual. Open and frank, he cares not what is said, end quote. He offers the Panchatattvas openly. Then follows a notable passage, quote, just as it is not blamable to drink openly in the Sautramani Yagya, Vedic rite, so in Siddhantachara, wine is drunk openly. As it is not blamable to kill horses in the Ashwamedha Yagya, Vedic rite, so no offense is committed in killing animals in this dharma. End quote. Nitya Tantra says that an article, be it pure or impure, becomes pure by purification, holding a cup made of human skull and by wearing the Rudraksha. The Siddhantachari moves on earth in the form of Bhairava himself. The knowledge of the last achara, that of the Kala, makes one Shiva. Just as the footprint of every animal disappears in that of the elephant, so every dharma is lost in the greatness of Kula Dharma. Here there are no injunctions or prohibitions, no restrictions as to time or place, in fact no rule at all. A Kala is himself Guru and the Sadashiva, and none are superior to him. Kalas are of three classes. Inferior, the ordinary or Prakrita Kala, who is ever engaged in rituals such as japa. Okay, Kalas are of three classes. Okay, first is inferior, the ordinary or Prakrita Kala, who is ever engaged in rituals such as japa, homa, puja, follows vyachara with panchatattva, and strives to attain the highland of knowledge. Second is, so a little higher is middling, is the Kala who does sadhana with panchatattva and is deeply immersed in meditation, dhyana and samadhi. The superior Kala is one who, quote, O mistress of the Kalas, sees the imperishable and all-pervading self in all things and all things in the self. O mistress of the Kaulas, sees the imperishable and all-pervading self in all things and all things in the self. He is a good caller who makes, end quote, okay? He is a good caller who makes no distinction between mud and sandal paste, gold and straw, a home and the cremation ground. He is a superior caller who meditates on the self with the self, who has equal regard for all, who is full of contentment, forgiveness, and compassion. Nitya Tantra Patala 3 says that callers move about in various shapes, now as an ordinary man of the world adhering to social rules, Shishta, at other times as one who has fallen therefrom, Bhrashta. At other times, he seems to be as weird and unearthly as a ghost, Bhuta. Kaulachara is, it says, the essence which is obtained from the ocean of Veda. Okay? Kaulachara, it says, is the essence which is obtained from the ocean of Veda and Agama after churning it with the staff of knowledge. वेदा और आगमा को ऐसे कुक करके कौलाचारा निकला है. In a modern account of the acharas, see Sanatana Sadhana Tattva or Tantra Rahasya by Sachidananda Swami, it is said that some speak of Aghorachara and Yogachara as two further divisions between the last but one and last. Between the last but one and last. Okay, between the second last and last. However this may be, the Aghoras of today are a separate sect who, it is alleged, have degenerated into mere eaters of corpses, though Aghora is said to only mean one who is liberated from the terrible Ghora Samsara. घोर samsara से जो liberate हुआ है उसका नाम है अघोरा. ऐसा होना चाहिए था. Yogachara in Yogachara was learned the upper heights of sadhana and the mysteries of yoga, such as the movements of the Vayu in the bodily microcosm, Kshudra Brahmanda, the regulation of which controls the inclinations and propensities or vrittis. Yogachara is entered by Yoga Diksha, and achievement in Ashtanga Yoga qualifies for Kaulachara. Whether there were such further divisions, I cannot at present say. I prefer for the time being to follow the Kularnava. The Swami's account of these is as follows. Vedachara, which consists in the daily practice of the Vedic rites, with, I may add, some tantric observances, that Vedachara is the gross body. Vedachara, which consists in the daily practice of the Vedic rites, is the gross body, Sthula Deha, which comprises within it all other acharas, which are, as it were, its subtle body. Okay, the acharas which are, as it were, its Sukshma Deha of various degrees. The worship is largely of an external character, the object of which is to strengthen dharma. This is the path of action, Kriya Marga. This and some other observations may be a modern reading of the old facts, but are on the whole, I think, justified. The second stage of Vaishnavachara is the path of devotion, Bhakti Marga. The second stage of Vaishnavachara is the path of devotion, Bhakti Marga. And the aim is union of devotion with faith previously acquired. The worshipper passes from blind faith to an understanding of the supreme protecting energy of the Brahman, towards which his devotion goes forth. And this is how, in fact, scientific experiments also happen, doesn't it? Nietzsche was writing in the book I'm reading, Truth and Untruth, that everything is faith. Even in science, why are you working so hard in proving it, unless you have some faith that something will turn out of this? Okay. What's going on here? Is there a buffer going on? Suddenly it's saying that YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. YouTube is not, as such, viewers will experience buffering. I see. Why is this happening? Is the internet slow? Let me know if it's buffering too much. Okay. I'm getting a message here from YouTube. Okay, Musafir is saying the book challenges assumptions that modern Western science developed only in Europe and that colonial science is inherently correct. Could putative superior metropolitan science. Okay, which book? Wo CJ Weller ka book. Linguist is saying Agni Puran 16.2, they sought refuge in the Lord, saying, protect us, protect us. He, Vishnu, who is the form of illusory delusion, became the son of Shuddhodhana. Many Islamic practices are pagan practice, so it can happen again.
M. Shastri is saying that's what gives Hinduism its unity and diversity. Exactly. Fuller book makes you really dwell deep into the mind of ICS anthropological views. I see. Okay. He was an ICS officer who played major part in Bengal partition in 1905. His work still influences West. Isabel Wilkerson book is the most famous one and directly built upon the same theory upon him. I see. Okay. Let me know if the audio is also getting stuck. Okay, it's smooth. Now it's proper. Okay, I'm still getting the message. I hope it's everything is fine. Yeah, what a fascinating chapter. Whenever I read on Tantra or the Brahma Purana, I go into a whole different world. It's such a trip. And when I take my eyes off the book and try to go back again, I can't even remember where I was reading it. I'm transported into a different world completely. You don't have to be a believer or theist to worship Hinduism. There are I'm writing to someday when I'm qualified enough and someday when I've read enough to do comparative analysis, because nothing is good by itself. Everything is good or bad compared to something else. Nothing is cosmically good. As Thomas Sowell says, that if you are complaining about everything that has happened in the history of humanity, what are you waiting for? Cosmic justice नाम का कोई चीज़ है क्या? What is that perfect thing you are waiting for? But when someday I want to write a book on, or at least start with writing an essay or article on atheist justifications of Hinduism. There are so many. You don't have to even believe. Although, even before I started believing it, since I have had so many coincidences in my life which can be explained only by theism, I always thought that, okay, therefore I like Jordan Peterson's explanation of answer of the question that, do you believe in God? He used to say, he still says that, I pretend like there is a God. I act like there is a God. And I think that's the best way to go, that I'm not taking any chances. Let's just consider that there might be a God and act accordingly. But now I see that even if you absolutely are an atheist, even then there is so many justifications of Hindu practices or Hindu concepts. Not specific one ritual or rite, but larger broad ideas like idol worship, temple, etc. in terms of economics, etc. All these things are so important. And interestingly, I just want to digress a little bit here for a little while. One fascinating. It does not have to make sense completely for a theist. At least while arguing with an atheist, out of all people, Andrew Tate gave a pretty interesting explanation of gods or believing in God. Okay, now it's buffering everything. Wait, let me just refresh. Okay, something's up. Something's not right here. The internet might be too slow. Okay, so Andrew Tate was saying in his in the latest Patrick Bet-David interview, which came out like about a year back or a few months back. So let's say there are two islands, and in one island, you reach there as a shipwreck, and the savages in that island kill you. And in another island, you go there, and the savages, because it's in their religion to save anyone and to go give a home to anyone who is shipwrecked, their gods say to do that, and therefore they save you, and therefore you stay alive in between the savages, even though your ship was absolutely destroyed in a storm. So who saved you? Did the savages save you, or did the god of the savages save you? That's one way to look at it, and that's a pretty nice explanation actually, and which would explain our religion, not Andrew Tate's religion. but Andrew Tate gave this argument, and interestingly, I need to tell you all something. There's a great course, full course lecture on Introduction to Sociology, which is a beginning chapter, one of the major beginning papers of any sociology course in the world. So New York University has put up its entire introduction to sociology course lectures from 16 years ago on YouTube for free. Okay, do watch that if you all someday get time. So different videos are on different topics, so you don't have to read, you don't have to listen to the entire about 25-30 videos there are. Listen to one video someday when you can. So the very first or the second video, as far as I can remember, gives you many justifications of many Hindu rituals, unknowingly or knowingly, like worshipping cows, etc. The lecture on organizations, social organizations, does not mention caste at all. It's not about caste remotely, but you'll understand how the concepts of jati, varna came about because of the value of organizations in society. And everything that the professor said there in terms of organization, you will know that, oh my god, it seems like they're talking about varnas and jati. And but there, from there I got to learn of a very significant and famous debate between two pretty legendary sociologists. One of them is by the name is more famous, called Marshall Sahlins. Okay, and one of them was a Sri Lankan sociologist who is an NRS, I guess, studied all his life in England, US, etc. I think in Princeton. His name was I think he's still alive. His name is Gananath Obesekere. तो मार्शल सॉलिन्स और गणनाथ ओबेसेकेरे के बीच में एक बहुत डिबेट चलता है, एंड बोथ ऑफ देम सिर्फ मतलब माँ बहन की गाली देना बाकी रह गया था. दे राइट वेहेमेंटली with very strong words against each other and also about each other in different articles, open letters, etc. The debate is, they are talking about Hawaiian Islands and how Captain Cook died when he reached Hawaii. Okay, so the story is that when Captain Cook reaches Hawaii, the Hawaiians, because apparently they had a myth among their society that a white god will appear in the society and you have to treat him right because he's a god, obviously. So they thought that Captain Cook is that god, he has come and now let's treat him good. So but Captain Cook is very surprised. He's thinking, what's going on here? Everywhere we go, these savages have to fight, they end up fighting with us, we have to beat them up, kill them, etc. What's going on? Why are they so welcoming of us? They are giving us gifts, they are giving us food, they are giving us gold, they are even sending their women to our huts when we are doing a night stay. Okay, everyone is surprised in their crew, in entirety of Captain Cook's crew. Okay, now then they stay there for a few days and then they leave. But after leaving, after a few days, something happens. Whether the British government faced some war or some natural calamity happened in the seas or something, for some reason, Captain Cook has to return to Hawaii. When he returns, the savages immediately, I'm going on saying savages like I'm a British person, but the indigenous people of Hawaii, they immediately rage war on them and kill everyone in that crew, and that's how Captain Cook dies. Now, Marshall Sahlins is saying here that those Hawaiian people were basically a myth-driven society. They know nothing more than their myths or their faiths and their religion, and therefore, first they treated Captain Cook well, but since their myth or their prophecies did not mention that the white god will return after a few days, therefore they realized that this is after all not the white god. So let's kill him. He's just another outsider. Okay. And to this, so this was his Marshall Sahlins' argument that, okay, so this is a myth-driven society. Now, Gananath Obesekere gets very pissed off with this interpretation. He says that, why are you calling them a myth-based society? Maybe they had legit materialist, even I guess logical, rational explanations for doing this. First of all, the Hawaiian script did not exist. Okay, there is no such thing called a Hawaiian script. Okay, at least not then. I don't know if it was made up later on. So whatever their mythology you know of on which you are basing these arguments, all that mythology was translated by Christian missionaries. So who knows what the fuck they translated? Okay, so the word white might have been mistranslated. God, the concept of God might have been mistranslated, as we know from the mistranslations of Sanskrit that happens. So white God था भी नहीं, यही doubt में है. But secondly, another thing that Marshall Sahlins himself mentions, but later on conveniently ignores, is that in the accounts of Captain Cook, it is mentioned that one of the crew members of Captain Cook got into a fight with
one of the people in the Hawaii Indian indigenous community, and I think he was killed even because that Hawaiian tribe was basically communistic in nature. They don't have any concept of personal property. It's a completely sharing. Everyone produces everything. Everyone shares everything. Everything belongs to everyone. But one of the crew members was taking some gold for himself personally in his cabin or something, and so they got pissed off and they considered that stealing and immediately got pissed off with him and killed him. So Gananath Obesekere is arguing that maybe when Captain Cook returned, they thought that, okay, these thieves are returning again. We treated them well the first time. Let's not make that mistake the second time, and now let's kill them. Now, the counter from Marshall Solins that comes is that, why did you assume that just because I'm saying they're a myth-driven society, I'm considering them inferior or bad? Now here, this argument today is basically the equivalent of what would be a debate between J.Sai Deepak and Amartya Sen, apparently, or J.Sai Deepak and Kushal Mehra. Marshall Solins, I would argue, is the J.Sai Deepak line of argument. Amartya Sen is the Gananath Obesekere line of argument. Because J.Sai Deepak is saying that, yes, whatever our culture, we don't have to consider them inferior. Even if you think that's just blind faith, blind rituals, etc. Kusamskara. I don't know if that word exists outside Bengal, but in Bengal we call blind rituals as Kusanskar, okay? So Marshall Solins is saying, so what? I'm just observing that some societies are not driven by myths, some societies are driven by myth. Who told you I'm being ethnocentric? Okay, the point is, both of them are accusing each other of being ethnocentric, and both of them are unhappy with that accusation, because Gananath Obesekere basically called Marshall Solins that said that, basically hinted that since he's a white man, he thinks these are stupid folk who are myth driven, and therefore he's being ethnocentric. Marshall Solins is saying, no, you are being ethnocentric and you are not understanding that. I'm not even making it as saying that as a criticism. Now the next brilliant point that Marshall Solins makes is that just because you are brown, you are from Sri Lanka, what makes you the authority to be an expert on Hawaii then? If I'm a white man who lives about half an hour via flight from Hawaii, and I can't be an authority on Hawaii just because I'm white, how can you be an authority on Hawaiian people even though you are from Sri Lanka, which is even like thousands of miles away? So the debate goes on, but then Gananath Obesekere's point is basically that what Amartya Sen says, that indigenous people, the pre-Abrahamic, the pre-colonized societies, I mean the post-colonial societies somehow agreed upon this notion that adhyatmikta hamara hai, science tumhara hai. But that's a interesting debate, and I don't really know which side I'm on. Rakshit is saying in Kannada also the same word, but it is used for wrong way of doing things. Acha. Andhvishwas, yeah. Kusamskara. Okay. 1 minute, मेरा coffee खत्म हो गया है, but I'm thirsty. Now let's resume the book. Yeah, so Ghora. In Yogachara was learnt the upper heights of sadhana and the mysteries of yoga, such as the movements of which such as the movements of the Vayu in the bodily microcosm, Kshudra Brahmanda, Kshudra, okay, not Shudra, Kshudra Brahmanda, the regulation of which controls the inclinations and propensities, Vritti. Yogachara is entered by Yoga Diksha, and achievement of Ashtanga Yoga qualifies for Kaulachara. Whether there were such further divisions, I cannot at present say. I prefer for the time being to follow the Kularnava. The Swami's account of these is as follows. Vedachara, which consists in the daily practice of the Vedic rites, with I may add some tantric observances, is the gross body, Sthula Deha, which comprises within it all other acharas, which are as it were its Sukshma Deha of various degrees. The worship is largely of an external character, the object of which is to strengthen dharma. This is the path of action, Kriya Marga. This and some other observations may be a modern reading of the old facts, but are on the whole, I think, justified. The second stage of Vaishnavachara is the path of devotion, Bhakti Marga, and the aim is union of devotion with faith previously acquired. The worshipper passes from blind faith to an understanding of the supreme protecting energy of the Brahman, towards which his devotion goes forth. With an increasing determination to uphold dharma and to destroy adharma, the sadhaka passes into the third stage or Shaivachara, which the author cited calls the militant Kshatriya stage, wherein to love and mercy are added strenuous striving and the cultivation of power. There is union of faith, devotion, and inward determination, antarlaksha. Entrance is here made upon the path of knowledge, jnana marga. Following this is the fourth stage or dakshinachara, which originally and in Tantra Shastra does not mean right hand worship, but according to the author cited, is the achara favorable to the accomplishment of the higher sadhana, of which Dakshina Kalika is Devi. The Vishwasara already cited derives the word from Dakshinamurti Muni, but Dakshina in either case has the same meaning. Dakshina Kali is a Devi of Uttaramnaya, and approach is here made to Veera rituals. This stage commences when the worshipper can make dhyana and dharana of the threefold Shakti of the Brahman: Ichha, Kriya, Jnana. So will, action, knowledge, and understands the mutual connection of the three. Ichha, Kriya, and Jnana. Mutual connection of these three. And understands the mutual connection of the three and of their expression as the gunas, and until he receives the rite of initiation called Purnabhisheka. At this stage, the sadhaka is Shakta and qualified for the worship of the threefold Shakti of Brahman, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. He worships the Adya Shakti as Dakshina Kalika, in whom are united the three Shaktis. The aim of this stage is the union of faith, devotion, and determination with a knowledge of the threefold energies. Passage is thus made from the Deva aspect to the Deva whole. Up to this stage, the sadhaka has followed Pravritti Marga, or the outgoing path, the path of the worldly enjoyment, albeit curbed by dharma. The sadhaka now, upon the exhaustion of the forces of the outward current, makes entry on the path of return, Nivritti Marga. As this change is one of primary importance, some have divided the acharas into the two broad divisions of Dakshinachara, including the first four, and Vamachara, including the last three. Strictly, however, the first three can only be thus included in the sense that they are preparatory to Dakshinachara proper and are all in the Pravritti Marga and not Vamachara. It is thus said that men are born into Dakshinachara but are received by initiation into Vamachara. Are bapre. As Dakshinachara does not mean right hand worship, so Vamachara does not mean, as it is vulgarly supposed, left hand worship. Left hand in English has a bad sense, and it is not sense to suppose that the Shastra which prescribes this achara itself gives it a bad name. Vama is variously interpreted. Some say it is the worship in which woman, Vama, enters, that is Lata Sadhana. Vama, this author says, Lata Sadhana, Lat. Let's not draw insane connections. Vama, this author says, means adverse, that is the stage adverse to the pravritti, which governs in varying degrees, governs what? The previous acharas. Because entry is here made on the nivritti path of return to the source of outgoing. In this achara also there is worship of the Vama Devi. In Vamachara, the sadhaka commences to directly destroy pravritti and with the help of the Guru to cultivate nivritti. The help of the Guru throughout is necessary. It is comparatively easy to lay down rules for the Pravritti Marga, but nothing can be achieved in Vamachara without the Guru's help. Some of the disciples are admittedly dangerous, and if entered upon without some of the disciplines are admittedly dangerous, and if entered upon without authority and discretion will probably lead to abuse. The method of the Guru at this stage is to use the forces of Pravritti in such a way as to render them self-destructive. The passions which bind, notably the fundamental instincts for food, drink, and sexual satisfaction, maybe it is said so employed as to act as forces whereby the particular life of which they are the strongest physical manifestation is raised to the universal life. Passion, which has hitherto run downward and outwards, often to waste, is directly is directed, okay, passion which has hitherto run downward and outwards, often to waste, is directed inwards and upwards and transformed into power. But it is not only the lower physical desires of eating, drinking, and sexual intercourse which must be subjugated. The sadhaka must at this stage commence the process, continues until the fruit of Kaulachara is obtained, to cut off all the 8 bonds, pasha, which have made him a pashu, for up to and including Dakshinachara is pashu worship. These pasha, bonds or afflictions, are variously enumerated by the more numerous classifications. But these pasha, which is why Lord Shiva is also known as pasha vimochak. Pasha ko jo vimochan karte hain. These pasha, bonds or afflictions are variously enumerated, but the more numerous classifications are merely elaborations of the smaller divisions. Thus, according to the Devi Bhagavata, moha is ignorance or bewilderment, and mahamoha is the desire for worldly pleasure which flows from it. The Kulandava Tantra mentions 8 primary bonds: daya, that is pity, as the feeling which binds as opposed to divine compassion or karuna; moha, ignorance; lajja, shame; lajja, shame, which does not mean that a man is to be a shameless sinner, but weak worldly shame of being looked down upon, of infringing conventions and so forth. तो inferiority complex नहीं होना है. Family, kula, which ceases to be a tie; shila, here meaning usage or convention; and varna, caste, for the enlightened is beyond all its distinctions. When, to take the Swami's example, Sri Krishna stole the clothes of the bathing gopis or milkmaids and cowherds and made them approach him naked, he removed the artificial coverings which are imposed on man in the samsara. The gopis were 8, as are the bonds, and the errors by which the jiva is misled are the clothes which Krishna stole. Freed of these, the jiva is liberated from all bonds arising from his desires, family, and society. Formerly, it was sufficient to live in worldly fashion, according to the morality governing life in the world. Now the sadhaka must go further and transcend the world, or rather seek to do so. He rises by those things which are commonly the cause of fall. When he has completely achieved his purpose and liberated himself from all bonds, he reaches the stage of Shiva or Shivatva. It is the aim of the Nivritti sadhana to liberate man from the bonds which bind him to the samsara, and to qualify the Veera sadhaka through Rajasika upasana. See chapter on Panchatattva. Through Rajasika upasana of the highest grades of sadhana, in which the Sattvika guna predominates. He is then Divya or divine. To the truly Sattvik, there is neither attachment, fear, nor disgust or grina. What is thus commenced in Vamachara is gradually completed by the rituals of Siddhantachara and Kaulachara. In the last 3 acharas, the sadhaka becomes more and more freed from the darkness of samsara and is attached to nothing, hates nothing, is ashamed of nothing. Really shameful acts of hypothesis below his acquired stage, is not ashamed of those things. So in the last 3 acharas, the sadhaka becomes more and more freed from the darkness of samsara and is attached to nothing, hates nothing, is ashamed of nothing, ashamed of not even the really shameful acts being below his, because those really shameful acts are below his acquired stage, and has freed himself of the artificial bonds of family, caste and society. He becomes an avaduta, that is, one who has washed off everything and has relinquished the world. Of these, as stated later, there are several classes. For him there is no rule of time or place. He becomes like Shiva himself, a dweller in the cremation ground, smashana, meaning he basically becomes Bhairava. He attains Brahma Jnana or the gnosis in perfect form. On receiving Mahapurana Diksha, he performs his own funeral rites and is dead to the samsara. Seated alone in some quiet place, he remains in constant samadhi, ecstasy, and attains in it its highest or nirvikalpa form. The Great Mother, the Supreme Prakriti, Mahashakti, dwells in his heart, which is now the inner cremation ground wherein all passions have been burnt away. He becomes a Paramahamsa, who is liberated whilst yet living, Jivan Mukta. From the above, it will be seen that the acharas are not various sects in the European sense, but stages in a continuous process through which the sadhaka must pass through before he reaches the supreme state of the highest kala, because the kalas are of differing degrees. Passing from the gross outer body of Vedachara, he learns its innermost core of doctrine, not expressed but latent in it. These stages need not be and are not ordinarily passed through by each jiva in the course of a single life. On the contrary, they are as a rule traversed in the course of a multitude of births, in which case the weaving of the spiritual garment is recommenced, where in a previous birth it was dropped on death. In one life, the sadhaka may commence at any stage. If he is a true caller now, it is because in previous births he has by sadhana in the preliminary stages won his entrance into it. Knowledge of Shakti is, as the Niruttara Tantra says, acquired after many births, and according to the Mahanirvana Tantra, it is by merit acquired in previous births that the mind is inclined to Kalachara. Kala Dharma is in no wise sectarian, but on the contrary claims to be the head of all sects. It is said, quote, at heart a Shakta, outwardly a Shaiva, in gatherings a Vaishnava, who are known to gather together for worship in praise of Hari. In thus many a guise the Kalas wander on earth. So who is a Kala? A Kala is someone who is at heart a Shakta, outwardly a Shaiva, and in gatherings is a Vaishnava. Anta Shakta Bahishaiva Sabhayam Vaishnava Mata Nana Rupadhara Kala Vicharanti Mahitale. The saying has been said to be an expression of this claim, which is, I think, involved in it. It does, however, also, I think, indicate secrecy and adaptability to sectarian form of him who has pierced to the core of that which all sects in varying, though partial ways, are present. Even if varying, they are present. A Kala is one who has passed through these and other stages, which have as their own inmost doctrine that of Kalachara. Whether these worshippers know it or not, is that of Kalachara. It is indifferent what the Kala's apparent sect may be. The form is nothing, and the form is also everything. It is nothing in the sense that it has no power to narrow the Kala's inner life. It is everything in the sense that knowledge may infuse its apparent limitations with an universal meaning. Okay? It is everything in the sense that knowledge may infuse its apparent limitations with an universal meaning. A man may thus live in all sects without their form being ever to him a bond. Which is what even Lord Bhairava says to Bhairavi in Sri Vigyan Bhairav Tantra. That I have created all these sampradaya sects just to fool people, so that the stupid people go on debating amongst each other about which sampradaya to follow. The one who is really liberated and really has gained spiritual heights will know that these sampradayas don't matter. In Vedic times, there were 4 ashramas, that is, states and stages in the life of the Arya, namely in their order: that of the chaste student, Brahmacharya; secular life as a married householder, Grihastha; the life of the forest recluse with his wife in retirement from the world, Vanaprastha; lastly, that of the beggar, Bhikshu or Avadhuta, wholly detached from the world, spending his time in meditation on the supreme Brahman, in preparation for shortly coming death. All these 4 were for the Brahmana caste, the first 3 for the Kshatriya, the first 2 for the Vaishya, and for the Shudra, the second only meaning Grihastha. Dekho, this is why Sanjay Dikshit says that if someone truly follows Manusmriti, the toughest life will be for the Brahman, the easiest life will be for the Shudra. This is mentioned in also Yoga Yajnavalkya, chapter 1. As neither the conditions of life nor the character, capacity and powers of the people of this age allow of the first and third ashrama, the Mahanirvana Tantra states in chapter 7.8 that in the Kali age, in chapter 8, that in the Kali age there are only 2 ashramas, namely the second and last, so Grihastha and Avadhuta, the Bhikshu. And that in Kali age, and those are open to all castes indiscriminately. This is mentioned in Mahanirvana Tantra. The same Tantra in chapter 14, 14.1, in chapter 141, speaks of 4 classes of Kula yogis or Avadhutas, namely the Shaivavadhuta and Brahmavadhuta, which are of 2 kinds, imperfect, Apurna, and perfect, Purna. The first 3 have enjoyment and practiced yoga. The fourth, or Paramahansa, should be absolutely chaste and should not touch metal. He is beyond all household duties and caste and ritual, such as the offering of food and drink to Devta. The Bhairava Damara classes the... Okay, so that's the text. The Bhairava Damar classes the Avadhuta into A. Kulavadhuta, and B. Shaivavadhuta, C. Brahmavadhuta, and D. Hamsavadhuta. Some speak of 3 divisions of each of these classes, Shaivavadhuta and Brahmavadhuta. The Shaivavadhutas are not, either from a Western or Shastric standpoint, as high as the Brahmavadhuta. The lowest of the class can have intercourse only with the own wife, Svaviya Shakti, as opposed to the Shaiva Shakti. The middle one has ordinarily nothing to do with any Shakti, and the highest must under no circumstances touch a woman or metal. Nor does he practice any rites or keep any observances. The main divisions here are Vedachara, Dakshinachara, and Vamachara. Vedachara is not Vedikachara, that is in the Shrauta sense, because the Shrauta Vedikachara appears to be outside this 7-fold tantric division, of which Vedachara is the tantric counterpart. Because it is tantric upasana with Vedic rites and mantras, with Agni as Devta, as I have been told. As a speculation, we may suggest that this achara was for those not adhikari for what is called the Shrauta Vedikachara. The second and third belong and lead up to the completed Dakshinachara. This is Pashvachara. Vamachara commences the other mode of worship leading up to the completed Kala, the Kala Avadhuta, and Divya. Here, with the attainment of Brahmajnana, we reach the region which is beyond all acharas, which is known as Shvechachara. In Bengali, Shvechachar means doing whatever the hell you want. All that those belonging to this state do or touch is pure. In and after Vamachara, there is eating and drinking in and as part of worship and Maithuna. After the Pashu, there is the Veera and then the Divya. Pashu is the starting point, Veera is on the way, and Divya is the goal. Okay, yeah. Each of the sects has a Dakshina and Vama division. It is commonly thought that this is peculiar to Shaktas, but this is not so. Thus, there are Vama, Ganapatyas, and Vaishnavas, and so forth. Again, Vamachara is itself divided again into a right and left side. In the former, wine is taken in Vamachara. In the Dakshinachara. In the Dakshinachara, wine is taken in a cup of stone or other substance, and worship is with Swakya Shakti or Sadhaka's own wife. So that is Dakshinachara. In Vamachara, in the latter and more advanced stage, drinking is done from a skull and worship may be with Parastri, that is some other Shakti. In the case, however, of some sects which belong to the Vamachara division, whilst there is meat and wine, there is, I am told, no Shakti, because the members are chaste, brahmachari. So far as I can ascertain, these sects which are mentioned later seem to belong to the Shaiva as opposed to the Shakta group. The Tantric Samgraha called Shaktananda Tarangini by Brahmananda Saraswati says in chapter 2 that Agama is both Sadagama and Asadagama, and that the former, the Sadagama alone is Agama according to the primary meaning of the word. Sadagama eva Agama sabdasya mukhyatvat. He then says that Shiva in the Agama Samhita condemns the Asadagama, saying, O Devasi, Men in the Kali age are generally of a rajasic and tamasic disposition, and being addicted to forbidden ways deceive many others. O Sureshwari, those who, in disregard of their varnashrama dharma, offer to us flesh, blood, and wine become bhutas, pretas, and brahma rakshasas, that is, various forms of evil spirits. This prohibits such worship as is opposed to varnashrama dharma. It is said, however, by the Vamacharis who take consecrated wine and flesh as a yajna not to cover their case. They are not covered in this. It is not uncommonly thought that Vamachara is that achara into which Vama or woman enters. This is true only to a certain extent. That is, it is a true definition of those sadhakas who do worship with Shakti according to Vamachara rites. But it seems to be incorrect insofar as there are, I am told, worshippers of the Vamachara division who are chaste, brahmachari. Vamachara means literally left way, not left-handed, in the English sense, which means what is bad. As the name is given to these sadhakas by themselves, it is not likely that they would adopt a title which condemns them. What they mean is that this achara is the opposite of dakshinachara. Philosophically, it is more monistic. It is said that even in the highest siddhi of a dakshinachari, there is always someone above him. But the fruit of Vamachara and its subsequent and highest stages is that the sadhaka becomes the emperor himself. The bhava differs, and the power of its method compared with Dakshinachara is said to be that between milk and wine. Moreover, it is to be noted that the Devi whom they worship is on the left of Shiva. In Vamachara, we find Kapalikas, Kalamukhas, Pashupatas, Bhandikeras, Digambaras, Aghoras, followers of Chinachara, and Kaulas, generally who are initiated. In some cases, as in that of the advanced division of Kaulas, worship is with all 5 tattvas, Panchatattva. In some cases, there is Brahmacharya, as in the case of Aghora and Pashupata, though these drink wine and eat flesh food. Some Vamacharis, I am informed, never cease to be chaste, Brahmachari, never stop being Brahmachari, such as Oghada sadhus, worshippers of Batuk Bhairava, Kanthadhari, and followers of Gorakshanatha, Sitanatha, and Matsyendranatha. In Nilakrama, there is no Maithuna. In some sects, there are differing practices. Thus, I am told amongst the Kalamukhas, the Kalaviras only worship Kumaris up to the age of 9, whereas the Kamamohanas worship with adult Shaktis. Some advanced members of this, in its general sense, Vamachara division in general sense do not, I am informed, do not even take wine and meat. It is said that the great Vamachari sadhaka Raja Krishna Chandra of Nadia, Upasaka of Chinnamasta Murti, did not take wine. Such and similar sadhakas have passed beyond the preliminary stage of Vamachara, and indeed in its special sense Vamachara itself. So they have passed beyond Vamachara itself. They may be Brahma Kaulas. As regards sadhakas generally, it is well to remember what the Mahakala Samhita, the great Shastra of the Madhyastha Kaulas, says in the 11th Ullasa called Sarira Yoga Kathanam, quote, some Kaulas there are who seek the good of this world, Aihikartha Dhritamana. So also the Vedikas enjoy what is here, Ahikartham Kamayante, as do I may interpose the vast bulk of present humanity, and are not seekers of liberation. Amrite ratim na kurvanti. Only by Nishkam sadhana is liberation attained. Here to learn is saying Yogi Adityanath is the Pithadhish of Nath Sampradaya of this Matsyendranath and Gorakshanath. Yes. I think is Matsyendranath included in that sect, because they are mainly Shaivas, no? But Matsyendranath is, I guess, Shakta, or is he a Tantric Shaiva? Was he a Tantric Shaiva? The Panchatattva are either real, pratyaksha, idealizing statements to the contrary are, when not due to ignorance, are mainly false. Okay, so the author is saying Panchatattva are either real or pratyaksha, or substitutional, anukalpa, or esoteric, divya tattva. As regards the second, meaning anukalpa, Even a vegetarian would not object to meat, which is in fact ginger, nor the abstainer would reject to wine, which is coconut water, in a ball metal vessel. Remember this, we had discussed this we had learnt of this in the introduction to Tantra Shastra as well, that mamsa does not even mean meat in all cases. For the Sattvic Tantra sadhakas, or people with the div, or with in case of anukalpa, which is done by people with divya bhav, not I think divya bhav, or at least people who are of a sattvic nature or in the sattvic path. For them, mamsa is ginger and madhya is coconut water. As for the esoteric tattva, they are not material articles or practices, but the simple symbols for yogic processes. Again, some notions and practices are more moderate and others extreme. The account given in the Mahanirvana of the Bhairavi and Tattva chakras may be compared with some more unrestrained practice, and the former again in the Bhairavi chakras may be contrasted with a modern chakra described in the 13th chapter of the life of Vijay Krishna Goswami by Jagatbandhu Moitra. There a Tantrika Siddha formed a chakra at which the Goswami was present. Chakra meaning literally a circle, okay? The latter says, Vijay Krishna Goswami says that all who were there felt as if the Shakti was their own mother who had borne them, and the Devtas whom the Chakreshwara invoked appeared in the circle to accept the offerings. Whether this is accepted as a fact or not, it is obvious that it was intended to describe a chakra of a different kind from that of which we have more commonly heard. There are some practices which are not correctly understood. There are some principles which the bulk of men will not understand. Because to understand there must be, besides knowledge, that undefinable bhava, the possession of which bhava carries with it the explanation which no words can give. Like Sri Aurobindo writes, inexplainable realities. I have dealt with this subject in the chapter on the Panchatattva. There are expressions which do not bear their surface meaning. Gomamsa bhakshana is not beef eating, but putting the tongue in the root of the throat. Remember this. What some translate as ravishing the widow refers not to a woman but to a process in Kundalini yoga and so forth. Lastly, and this is important, a distinction is seldom made between, if ever, made between Shastric principles and actual practice, nor is count taken of the conditions properly governing the worship and its abuse. It is easy to understand that if Hinduism has in general degenerated, there has been a fall here. It is, however, a mistake to suppose that the sole object of these rites is enjoyment. It is not necessary to be a tantric for that. The moral of all this is that this is that it is better to know the facts than to make erroneous generalizations. There are said to be 3 Krantas, or geographical divisions of India, of which, roughly speaking, the northwest portion is Vishnu Kranta, the northwestern Ratha Kranta, and the remaining, the southern portion, is Ashwa Kranta. According to the Shakta Mangala and Mahasiddhisara Tantras, Vishnu Kranta, which includes Bengal, northeastern portion which includes Bengal, that is Vishnu Kranta, extends from the Vindhya range to the Chattala or Chittagong. From Vindhya to Tibet and China is Ratha Kranta, northwestern. Acha. Vindhya to Tibet and China is Ratha Kranta. There is then some difference between these two tantras as to the position of Ashwakranta. According to the first, this last Kranta extends from the Vindhya to the sea, which perhaps includes the rest of India. According to the Mahasiddhisara Tantra, it extends from the Karatoya river to a point which is in North Bengal and in Bangladesh, Assam. Karatoya river to a point which cannot be identified with certainty in the text cited, but which may be Java. Oh my god. To each of these 64 tantras have been assigned. To each of these places, 64. Okay, so each of these 3 places, 64 tantras have been assigned. One of the questions awaiting solution is whether the tantras of these three geographical divisions are marked by both doctrinal and ritual peculiarities. And if so, what are they? This subject has been referred to in the first part of the Principles of Tantra, wherein a list of tantras is given, which is Sir John Woodruff's main book, which is extremely costly, which we will someday discuss from our live stream channels as well. That two-volume book, gigantic Principles of Tantra Shastra. In the Shakta division, there are 4 sampradayas, namely Kerala, Kashmira, Gauda, and Vilasa. Okay, Kerala Shakta, Kashmira Shakta, Gauda Shakta, and Vilasa Shakta. In each of these there is both outer and inner worship. The Sammohana Tantra gives these 4 sampradayas also the number of tantras, not only in the first 3 sampradayas but in China and Dravida. I have been informed that out of 56 deshas, which included, besides Hunas, places outside India such as China, Mahachina, Bhota, Simhala, meaning Sri Lanka, 18 follow Gauda, extending from Nepal to Kalinga, and 19 follow Kerala, extending from Vindhyachala to the southern sea. The remaining countries forming part of the Kashmira Desa. And that woman, that sociology professor from JNU says Kashmir has never been an integral part of India, and that is a historical fact. And these ancient text mentions that entire North India is called Kashmira Desa. And that in each sampradaya there are paddhatis such as Shuddha, Gupta, and Ugra. There is variance in devatas and rituals, some of which are explained in the Tara Shukta and Shakti Samgama Tantra. There are also various matas such as Kadi Mata or Kadi Mata. Kadi Mata, called Veera Danuttara, of which the devata is Kali. See Introduction to Tantraja Tantra, a short analysis. Hadi Mata, called Hamsaraja, of which Tripura Sundari is devta, and Kahadi Mata, the combination of the two of which Tara is devta, that is Neela Saraswati. Certain deshas are called Kadi, Hadi, Kahadi deshas, and each mata has several amnayas. It is said that the Hamsatara Mahavidya is the sovereign lady of yoga, whom Jainas called Padmavati, Shaktas call them Shakti, Bauddhas call them Tara. Oh my god, listen to this line. It is said that the Hamsatara Mahavidya is the sovereign lady of yoga, whom Jainas call Padmavati, Shaktas call Shakti, Bauddhas call Tara, China sadhakas call them Mihogra, and Kaulas call them Chakreshwari. Wow, this is important. Let me just mark this. The Kadis are called Kali, the Hadis are called Sri Sundari, and Kadi Hadis are called Hamsa. Volumes 7 and 12 of Tantric texts contain that portion of the Tantra Raja which belongs to Kadi Mata. I'm going on saying Kadi and Kadi both because I don't know what it's actually supposed to be, okay? These are ambiguous always in English. Which belongs to Kadi Mata, and in the English introduction mentioned above, I have dealt with this subject. Gauda Sampradaya considers Kadi the highest Mata, whilst Kashmira and Kerala worship Tripura and Tara. Possibly there may have been originally deshas which were the exclusive seats of specific schools of Tantra, but later and at present, so far as they exist, this cannot be said. In each of the deshas, different sampradayas may be found, though doubtless at particular places as in Bengal, particular sects may be predominant. In my opinion, it is not yet possible to present with both accuracy and completeness the doctrine and practice of any particular tantric school, and to indicate wherein it differs from other schools. It is not possible at present to say fully and precisely who the original Shaktas were, the nature of their subdivisions, and of their relation to or distinction from some of the Shaiva group. Thus, the Kaulas are generally in Bengal included in the Brahmagyani Shakta group, but the Sammohana in one passage already cited mentions Kaula and Shakta separately, okay? Thus, the Kaulas are generally in Bengal included in Brahmagyani Shakta group, but the Sammohana in one passage mentions Kala and Shakta separately. Possibly it is there mentioned to distinguish ordinary Shaktas from the special group called Kala Shaktas. Wow. In Kashmir, some Kalas, I believe, I guess यहीं से कश्मीरी पंडित्स का वो कॉल सरनेम आया है. In Kashmir, some Kalas, I believe, call themselves Shaivas, yeah. For an answer to these and other questions, we must await a further examination of the texts. At present, I am doing clearing of mud, Pakodharana from the tank, not in the expectation that I can wholly clear away the mud and weeds, but with a desire to make a beginning which others may complete, which he basically completed in the 2-volume Principles of Tantra Shastra, which we absolutely have to read. He who has not understood Tantra Shastra has not understood what Hinduism is as it exists today. Big statement, huh? This will, I guess, might piss off some people. He who has not understood Tantra Shastra has not understood what Hinduism is as it exists today. The subject is an important part of Indian culture and therefore worth study by the duly qualified. What I have said should be sufficient to warn the ignorant from making rash generalizations. Absolutely. At present, we can say that he who worships the mantra and yantra of Shakti is a Shakta, and that there were several sampradayas of these worshippers. What we can and should first do is to study the Shakta Darshana as it exists today, working back from the known to the unknown. Reverse engineer. What I am about to describe is the Shakta faith as it exists today, that is Shaktivada. Okay, Shaktivada, not as something entirely new, but as the development and amalgamation of the various cults from which were its ancestors. Okay, amalgamation of the various cults which were its ancestors. Okay, final few pages of the chapter. कितना रिसर्च गया है भाई. ये कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट का जज था, उसके साइड में ये सब पढ़ रहा था बैठ के, फिर रिटायरमेंट के बाद ये सब बुक लिखा. और वो भी जिसका मदर टंग है इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज, ब्रिटिश आदमी है. हस्बैंड वाइफ दोनों मिलके शाक्त साधका, तांत्रिक साधका बन गए. Summarizing Shakta doctrine, we may first affirm that it is the Advaitavada or monism. This we might expect, seeing that it flourished in Bengal, which, as the old Gauda Desha, is the guru both of Advaitavada and of Tantra Shastra. Wow. Chalo, some nice reason for Bangla pride, guys. Where is Bangla Pakko? Listen to this. From Gauda came Gaudapadacharya, Madhusudana Saraswati, author of the great Advaita Siddhi, रामचंद्र तीर्थ भाई. अच्छा, अब रामचंद्र को तो आउटसाइडर बोल दिया है, मगर यही से सब है भी. फ्रॉम गौड़ केम गौड़पादाचार्य, मधुसूदन सरस्वती, ऑथर ऑफ द ग्रेट अद्वैत सिद्धि, रामचंद्र तीर्थ भारती, चित्सुखाचार्य and others. There seems to me to be a strong disposition in the Brahmaparayana Bengali temperament towards Advaitavada. For all Advaitins, the Shakta Agama and Advaita Shaiva Agama must be the highest form of worship. For all Advaitins, the Shakta Agama and Advaita Shaiva Agama must be the highest form of worship. A detailed account of the Advaita teachings of the Shaktas is a matter of great complexity and of a highly esoteric character beyond the scope of this chapter. I may here note that the Shakta Tantras speak of 94 tattvas made up of 10, 12 and 16 kalas of fire, sun and moon, constituting the Kama Kala respectively, and 19 of Sadashiva, 6 of Ishvara, 10 each of Rudra, Vishnu and Brahma. The 51 kalas or matrikas, which are the Sukshma Rupa of the 51 ladders, meaning which are the 51 kalas or matrikas, which are the Sukshma Rupa of the 51 matrika varnas. So they are 51 varnas, are a portion of these 94. These are the 51 coils of Kundali from Bindu to Srimatri Kotpatti Sundari, mentioned in my Garland of Letters or Studies on the Mantra Shastra. That's also one of his famous books. Garland of Letters meaning Varnamala. These are all worshipped in the wine jar by those Shaktas who take wine. The Shastras also set out the 36 tattvas which are common to Shaktas and Shaivas. The 5 kalas which are samanya to the tattvas, meaning simple or primary, I guess. The 5 kalas which are samanya to the tattvas, namely nivritti, pratishtha, vidya, shanta, shantyatita, and the sadadva, namely varna, pada, and mantra, kala, tattva. Okay, so varna, pada, and mantra, kala, tattva, bhuvana, which represent the artha aspect and the shabda aspect respectively. अरे बाप रे, ये कहाँ से आ गया? The Shastras also set out the 36 tattvas which are common to the Shaktas and Shaivas, the 5 kalas which are samanya to the tattvas, namely nivritti, pratishtha, vidya, shanta, santyatita, and sadadva, namely varna, pada, and mantra, kala, tattva, bhuvana, which represent the artha aspect and the shabda aspect respectively. Okay, so nivritti, pratishtha, vidya, shanta, and santyatita represents the artha aspect and the sadadva, varna, pada, mantra, kala, tattva, bhuvana, this represents the shabda aspect. To pass to more popular matters, a beautiful and tender concept of the Shaktas is the motherhood of God, that is, God as Shakti, or the power which produces mountains and withdraws the universe. This is the thought of a worshipper. Though the Sammohana Tantra gives high place to Shankara, okay. This is the thought of a worshipper. Though the Sammohana Tantra gives high place to Shankara as conqueror of Buddhism, speaking of him as a manifestation of Shiva and identifying his 4 disciples and himself with the 5 Mahapretas. The Agamas as Shastras of worship do not teach Mahavada, The Agamas as Shastras of worship do not teach Mayavada as set forth according to Shankara's transcendental method. Maya to the Shakta worshipper is not an unconscious something, not real, not unreal, not real unreal, which is associated with Brahman in its Ishvara aspect, though it is not Brahman. Brahman is never associated with anything but itself. Maya to the Shakta is Shakti veiling herself as consciousness, by which, as being Shakti, is consciousness. Okay, listen to this once more. Brahman is never associated with anything but itself. Maya to the Shakta is Shakti veiling herself as consciousness, but which, as being Shakti, is consciousness. Okay? So Maya is Shakti veiling herself as consciousness. And since it is Shakti, it is consciousness itself. And the veil of that is Maya. Oh, and hence the famous song by the metal band called Scenic, called Veil of Maya. And there is an equally famous metal band called Veil of Maya, who got their name from the song Veil of Maya by the band Scenic. You all should listen to Veil of Maya. But which, as being Shakti, is consciousness. So Veil of Maya would mean consciousness and would have to do with consciousness and Shakti. Interesting. I wonder if they know all these things. They have probably read about it in Wikipedia. To the Shakta, all that he sees is the mother. All is consciousness. This is the standpoint of sadhana. The Advaitins of Shankara's school, so Shankaracharya, the Advaitins of Shankara's school claim that their doctrine is given from the standpoint of Siddhi. I will not argue this question here. When Siddhi is obtained, there will be no argument. Until that event, man is, it is admitted, subject to Maya and must think and act according to the forms which it imposes on him. It is important, after all, to realize, in fact, the universal presence of the divine consciousness than to attempt to explain it in philosophical terms. The Divine Mother first appears in and as her worshipper's earthly mother, then as his wife listen to this. The Divine Mother first appears in and as her earthly mother, meaning your actual biological mother, then as his wife, thirdly as Kalika. She reveals herself in old age, disease and death. It is she who manifests, and not without a purpose, in the vast outpouring of Samhara Shakti, which was witnessed in the great world conflict of our time. The terrible beauty of such forms is not understood. Samhara. So Samhara is in Bengali, Shanghar means eating up, right? Consuming, all consuming. Samhara Shakti, which was witnessed in the great world conflict of our time. So the world wars, I guess. The terrible beauty of such forms is not understood. And so we get the recent utterance of a missionary professor at Madras who, being moved to horror at the sight of the Chamunda Murti called the Devi, a she-devil. Lastly, this is also Jordan Peterson's misunderstanding of Shakti worship. Lastly, she takes to herself the dead body in the fierce tongues of flame. Okay. Lastly, she takes to herself the dead body in the fierce tongues of flame which light the funeral pyre. So, where is Divine Mother existing in the entire life cycle? Okay. First, she is your biological mother. Then she is your wife. Then she is as Kalika. She reveals herself in old age, disease and death. She is in Samhara, all conflicts, and she is the dead body which gets consumed in flames. The monist is naturally unsectarian, and so the Shakta faith, as held by those who understand it, is free from a narrow sectarian spirit. So Shaktism is not really a sect, and therefore the stupid Bangla Pakho people need to stop saying that Ram is an outsider god, and they will apparently, like the one guy was saying, that they will convert all Ram temples in West Bengal and convert them to Kali temples. Nextly, it, like the other agamas, makes provision for all castes and both sexes. Whatever be the true doctrine of the Vedikas, their practice is in fact marked by exclusiveness. Thus, they exclude women and Shudras. It is easy to understand why the so-called Anarya Sampradayas did not do so. A glorious feature of the Shakta faith is the honor which it pays to women. And this is natural for those who worship the Great Mother, whose representative Vigraha, whose representative Vigraha is all earthly women are. Okay, whose representative are all earthly women. Okay, now the point is, a lot of Western pseudo-historians and Christian theologians think that any culture that worships women will go to hell because that makes their men weak, etc. And now if you bring up Bengali men, that could be said, because now you can't bring up just Netaji and Sri Aurobindo and Shashank, but in general there is a problem with masculinity in Bengali Hindu men, which is why we've not had too many great kingdoms or great kings, etc. Although the Palas did extend at some point till Punjab, but that's it. And they had some inclination towards Buddhism as well. But then, even now, as we see, but anyway, the point is, it has nothing to do with worshipping a female deity, because the Marathas were all Jai Bhavani people. Striyo Deva Striya Prana. Women are devas, women are life itself, as an old hymn in the Sarvollasa has it. It is because woman is a Vigraha of the Amba Devi, her likeness in flesh and blood, that the Shakta Tantras enjoin the honor and worship of women and girls, Kumaris, and forbid all harm to them, such as the Sati rite, enjoining that not even a female animal is to be sacrificed. With the same solicitude for women, the Mahanirvana prescribes that even if a man speaks rudely, Durvachyam Kathayan, to his wife, he must fast for a whole day, and enjoins the education of daughters before their marriage. The Muslim author of the Dabistan says the Agama favors both sexes equally. Men and women equally compose mankind. This sect hold women in great esteem and call them Shaktis, and to ill-treat a Shakti, that is a woman, is a crime. The Shakta Tantras again allow of women being Guru or spiritual director, a reverence which the West has not, with rare exceptions, yet given them. And even Jesai Deepak's Karadi Payattu teacher is a woman. Prodigy also have some Hindu songs, yes. Continental Drift from Pangaea. Oh, you know metal bands. We threw a tectonic plate to China. The Shakta Tantras again allow of women being guru or spiritual director, a reverence with the West has not yet given them. Initiation by a mother bears eightfold fruit. Like the other sort of a tantra sadhaka, or almost expert, as you can say, who comes regularly on Beer Biceps, is the person called what's his name? His surname is Huge, who recently interviewed Rajarshi Nandi on a boat in Kashi. He was also initiated by a very old woman, old tantra sadhika. Indeed to be the enlightened Shakta, the whole universe is Stri or Shakti. Aham Stri, as the Advabhavana Upanishad says. A high worship, therefore, which can be offered to the mother today, consists in getting rid of abuses which have neither the authority of ancient Shastra nor of modern social science, and to honor, cherish, educate and advance women, Shakti. Striyo Deva Striya Prana. I have to underline this and let some feminists know. They are trying to reinvent the wheel in very bad ways. Gautamiya Tantra says, Sarva varnadhikarascha narinam yogya evacha. That is, the Tantra Shastra is for all castes and for women. And the Mahanirvana says that the low Kaula who refuses to initiate a Chandala or Yavana or a woman out of disrespect goes the downward path. No one is excluded from anything except on the grounds of a real and not artificial or imagined incompetency. Only in case of real incompetency. यहाँ पे डिजर्वेशन भी नहीं है वुमेन का और शूद्र का. अगर आता नहीं है तुमको, तब तो तुमको बाहर निकलना ही होगा. मेरिटोक्रेसी का बात है. An American Orientalist critic, in speaking of the quote-unquote worthlessness of tantric philosophy, said that it was religious feminism run mad, adding, quote, "What is all this but the feminization of orthodox Vedanta? It is a doctrine for suffragette monists, the dogma unsupported by any evidence that the female principle antedates and includes the male principle, and that this female principle is supreme divinity," end quote. The worthlessness, the quote-unquote worthlessness of the tantric philosophy is a personal opinion on which nothing need be said, the more particularly that Orientalists who, with insufficient knowledge, have already committed themselves to this view, are not likely to easily abandon it. The present criticism, however, is disclosing the grounds on which it is based, has shown that they are without worth. Were it not for such ignorant notions, it would be unnecessary to say that the Shakta Sadhaka does not believe that there is a woman suffragette or otherwise in the sky, surrounded by the members of some celestial feminist association who rules the male members of the universe, which is also considered by the fake white liberal feminists who say chakras and healings, etc. They think that is how Shakti worshipping happens, that there is an imaginary gang of women association ruling over men, etc. As the Yamal says, for the benefit of the ignorant, Neyam Yositna cha Puman Sandona Jada Smritak. That is, God is neither female, male, hermaphrodite, nor unconscious thing. Nor is his doctrine concerned with the theories of the American professor Lester Ward and others as to the alleged preeminence of the female principle. We are not here dealing with questions of science or sociology. It is a common fault of Western criticism that it gives material interpretations to Indian scriptures and so misunderstands it. The Shakta doctrine is concerned with those spiritual principles which exist before and are the origin of both men and women. Whether in the appearance of the animal species the female quote-unquote antedates the male is a question with which it is not concerned. Nor does it say that the quote-unquote female principle is the supreme divinity. Shiva, the male, the quote-unquote male, is co-equal with Shive, the quote-unquote female, because both are one and the same. An Orientalist might have remembered that in the Samkhya, Prakriti is spoken of as female and Purusha as quote-unquote male, and in Vedanta, Maya and Devi are of the feminine gender. Shakti is not a male or a female person, quote-unquote, nor a male nor a female quote-unquote principle, in the sense in which sociology, which is concerned with gross matter, sthula matter, uses these terms. Shakti is symbolically female, quote-unquote, because it is the productive principle. Shiva, insofar as he represents the chit or consciousness aspect, is actionless, nishkriya, though the two are inseparably associated even in creation. Because let's do bring it with let's associate it, let's make it relevant with real life examples, but not in the stupid sociological way. If you just think and do not act, what's going to happen? Nothing. The thinking is the, let's say, the Shiva, the action is Shakti, the power, the energy to do the stuff, but that has to happen after there is some thinking behind it. The supreme is the attributeless nirguna, Shiva, or to the neuter Brahman, which is neither male nor female, because it is neither consciousness not energy. With such mistaken general views of the doctrine, it was not likely that its more subtle aspects by way of relation to Shankara's Mayavada or the Samkhya Darshana should be appreciated. The doctrine of Shakti has no more to do with feminism than it has to do with old age pensions or any other sociological movement of the day. This is a good instance of those apparently quote-unquote smart and cocksure judgments which Orientalists and others pass on things Indian. This is Sir John Woodruff writing in 1901. Is it written in 1901? Let me see the year. That would be fun to know. This was written in... अरे ये इनिशियल ईयर क्यों नहीं देता है? प्रीफेस टू द थर्ड एडिशन से स्टार्ट हो रहा है. फर्स्ट एडिशन कब था? या 1920s. ओके. The errors would be less ridiculous if they were on occasions more modest as regards their claims to know and understand. What is still important, they would not probably in such cases give unnecessary ground for offense. The characteristic features of Shakta Dharma are thus its monism, its concept of motherhood of God, its unsectarian spirit, and provisions for Shudras and women, to the latter of whom it renders high honor, recognizing that they may even be gurus, and lastly, its sadhana skillfully designed to realize its teachings. As I have pointed out on many occasions, this question of sadhana is of the highest importance and has been in recent times much overlooked. It is that which more than anything else gives value to the Agama or Tantra Shastra. Mere talk about religion is only an intellectual exercise. It is that which more than anything else gives value to the Agama or Tantra Shastra. Okay? What is that? Sadhana. Sadhana is of the highest importance and has been in recent times much overlooked. Mere talk about religion is only an intellectual exercise, as we are doing basically. Of what use are grand phrases about Atma on the lips of those who hate and injure one another and will not help the poor? Kya line bol diya hai. This basically describes most of Bengal religious society, which is why I disagree with Desai Deepak. Mere talk about religion is only an intellectual exercise. Of what use are grand phrases about Atma on the lips of those who hate and injure one another and will not help the poor? Religion is kindness. Religion again is a practical activity. Mind and body must be trained. There is a spiritual as well as a mental and physical gymnastic. According to Shakta doctrine, each man and woman contains within himself and herself a vast latent magazine of power or Shakti, a term which comes from the root shak, to be able, to have force to do, to act. Exactly what we just discussed, that mere thoughts are not enough. They are each Shakti and nothing but Shakti. For the Swarupa, because the Swarupa of Shakti, that is Shakti as it is in itself, is consciousness, and mind and body are Shakti, okay? The Swarupa of Shakti, that is Shakti as it is in itself, is consciousness, and mind and body are Shakti. The problem then is how to raise and vivify Shakti. This is the work of sadhana in the religion of power. The Agama is a practical philosophy, and as the Bengali friend and collaborator of mine, Professor Pramotanath Mukhopadhyay, whom I cite again, has well put it, what the intellectual world wants today is the sort of philosophy which not merely argues but experiments. This is Kriya. The form which sadhana takes necessarily varies according to faith, temperament, and capacity. To to one's own faith temperament and capacity, which Rajarshi Nandi repeatedly says. Thus, amongst Christians, the Catholic Church, like Hinduism, has a full and potent sadhana in its sacraments, or samskara, temple, which is church, private worship, puja, upasana, with upachara, bell, light, and incense, ghanta, deepa, dhupa, images or pratima, hence it has been called idolatrous, devotional rites such as novenas and the like, vrata, and threefold angelus, at morning, noon, and evening, samdhya, rosary or japa, the wearing of kavachas, scapulars, medals, and Agnus Dei, comparing between Christians and Christianity and Shaktism. Importantly, let me mark this. Christianity vis-a-vis Hinduism, let's say, or to be specific, Shaktism. Rosary, japa, the wearing of kavachas, scapulars, medals, Agnus Dei, pilgrimage, tirtha, fasting, abstinence and mortification, tapas, monastic renunciation, samnyasa, especially in Orthodox Christianity, the Russian version. If you read Dostoevsky, especially Brothers Karamazov, you'll read all about it. Meditation, dhyana, ending in the union of mystical theology, samadhi, and so forth. There are other smaller details, such for instance as Shanti Abhisheka, asperges, into which I need not enter here. I may, however, mention the spiritual director who occupies the place of the Guru, the worship, hyperdulia of the Virgin Mother, which made Swami Vivekananda call the Italian Catholics Shaktas, and the use of wine, madhya, and bread corresponding to mudra in the Eucharist or communion service. Whilst, however, the Blessed Virgin evokes devotion as warm as that which is here paid to Devi, she is not Devi, because she is not God, but a creature selected as the vehicle for his incarnation, avatara. In the Eucharist, the bread and wine are the body and blood of Christ appearing under the form or accidents of those, quote-unquote, accidents of those material substances. So also Tara is Dravamai, that is the savior in liquid form. This is mentioned in Mahanirvana Tantra, chapter 11, 105 to 107, I guess, page or subchapter. In the Catholic Church, though the early practice was otherwise, in the early practice was it was different, but in Catholic Church now, when this book was being written, the laity, the laymen, the normal people no longer take wine but bread only, the officiating priest consuming both. So previously they used to do both. Everyone used to do it. Whilst, however, the outward forms in this case are similar, the inner meaning is different, the epistemology is different. Those, however, who contend that eating and drinking are inconsistent with the quote-unquote dignity of worship may be reminded of Tertullian's saying that Christ instituted his great sacrament at a meal. These notions are those of the dualist with all his distinctions, because for the Advaitan, every function and act may be made a yajna. Agape or love feasts, a kind of chakra, were held in early times and discontinued as orthodox practice. So you see, Orthodox Christianity was much more closer to Hinduism or Shaktism, because that was the remnants of the pre-Christian practices of Middle East. No, Tadi is all around India, yeah. And agape or love feasts of Christians, a kind of chakra, were held in early times and discontinued as orthodox practice on account of abuses to which they led, though they are said still to exist in some of the smaller Christian sects of the day. There are other points of ritual which are peculiar to the Tantra Shastra and of which there is no counterpart in the Catholic ritual, such as Nyasa and Yantra. Iska koi equivalent nahi hai. Mantra exists in the form of prayer and as formulae of consecration, absolutely, in Latin. But otherwise, the subject is conceived of differently here. Thoda bahut. There are certain gestures, mudra, made in the ritual, as when consecrating, blessing, and so forth, because even during exorcism they do different mudras. But they are not so numerous or prominent as they are here. I may someday more fully develop these interesting analogies, but what I have said is for the present day sufficient to establish the numerous similarities which exist between the Catholic and the Indian tantric ritual. Because of these facts, the Reformed Christian sects have charged the Catholic Church with paganism, okay? the so-called quote-unquote reformed Christian sects have charged the Catholic Church with paganism. Interesting. Because they had yet not given up the pre-Christian practices. It is in fact the inheritor of very ancient practices, what we just discussed, but is not necessarily the worse for that. The Hindu finds his sadhana in the tantras of the agamas in forms which his race has evolved. In the abstract, there is no reason why his race should not modify these forms of sadhana or evolve new ones. But the point is that it must have some form of sadhana. Any system to be fruitful must experiment to gain experience. It is because of its powerful sacraments and disciplines that in the West the Catholic Church has survived to this day, holding firm upon its quote-unquote rock amid the dissolving sects born of what is called the quote-unquote reform. It is likely to exist when these as presently existing sects will have disappeared. It is likely to exist even when these so-called reforming present-day sects will have disappeared. All things survive by virtue of truth in them. The particular truth to which I here refer is that a faith cannot be maintained by mere hymn singing and pious addresses. ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ है कल्चरल हिंदूज को याद रखने का. कल्चरल हिंदुइज्म से तो नहीं होगा. For this reason too, Hinduism has survived. This is not necessary to say that either of these will, as presently existing forms, continue until the end of time. The so-called Reformed or Protestant sects, whether of West or East, are, when viewed in relation to man in general, the imperfect expression of a truth misunderstood and misapplied, namely, so Brahmo Samaj, that the higher man spiritually ascends, the less dependent is he on form. Yeah. The mistake which such sects make is to look at the matter from one side only and to suppose that all men are alike in their requirement. Oh, wow. What a great argument to critique the people who hate idol worshipping. Wow. I need to underline this. This has been going on in my mind as well. I really agree with this. That their criticism might be accurate. It's not necessarily accurate, but even if it is accurate, it's not complete. Wait. I have to underline this. The mistake which such sects make is to look at the matter from one side only and to suppose that all men are alike in their requirement. क्योंकि ट्रूथ तो ये है कि the higher man spiritually ascends, the less dependent is he on form. तो सब कोई को हायर फॉर्म में असेंट करना है, ये किसने बोल दिया? और सब कोई के पास टाइम कहाँ है? क्योंकि ब्राह्मो समाज वाले तो थे बंगाल के 19th सेंचुरी एलीट. जिंदगी में कभी उन्होंने कोई चीज़ का अभाव फेस नहीं किया था. Richest of the rich and Brahmins. So the most privileged class decided that idol worship useless है, क्योंकि हमको तो हायर स्पिरिचुअलिटी करना है, क्योंकि हमको तो डेली बस में लटक के ऑफिस नहीं जाना है. Can you repeat the criticism? Yeah. The Agama is guilty of no such error. It offers form in all its fullness and richness to those below the stage of yoga, at which point man reaches what the Kularnava Tantra calls the Varna and Ashrama of light, Jyoti Varna Shrami, and gradually releases himself from all form that he may unite his self with the formless one. ये ब्राह्मो समाज का ऑब्सेशन था, formless one. I do not know which most to admire, the colossal affirmations of Indian doctrine or the wondrous variety of the differing disciplines which it prescribes for their realization in fact. The Buddhists called Brahmanism Shila Vrata Paramarsha, that is, a system believing in the efficacy of ritual acts. And so it is, and so at length was Buddhism. When passing through Mahayana, it ended up with the full tantric sadhana of the Vajrayana school. There are human tendencies which cannot be suppressed. Hinduism will, however, disappear if and when sadhana, whatever be its form, ceases. For that will be the day on which it will no longer be something real, but the mere subject of philosophical and historical talk. ये बहुत बढ़िया बात बोला, and this we must remember. What a great paragraph is going on. Wait, I need to mark this really hard. Let me just write some notes, because so that when I'm turning pages I stumble upon this page later on easily. Apart from its great doctrine of Shakti, the main significance of the Shakta Tantra Shastra lies in this, that it affirms the principle of the necessity of sadhana and claims to afford a means available to all of whatever caste and of either sex, whereby the teachings of Vedanta may be practically realized. I'm sure he sat with an acharya. Yeah, M. Shastri. He was fully dikshit by a very, very legendary and one of the most senior-most tantric gurus of Bengal at that point, when he got an interest in tantra. He, in fact, there are many stories about this. He wore only Indian clothes. He ate only Indian food, and he slept on only floors. Okay, because his guru told him to do so. Because his guru said that unless your Sanskrit Uchcharan is absolutely perfect, you won't be able to go progress in sadhana. And in order for your Sanskrit Uchcharan to be absolutely perfect, you will have to sleep on a floor, because that shapes your anatomy in a particular way. Because the ancient rishis who came up with these mantras and these words, or the Sanskrit shlokas, they used to sleep on floors. So in order to get closer to their anatomy even, you'll have to sleep on floors. And that's what this Sir John Woodruff followed. And M. Shastri, that is why it's not like I'm reading some random Westerners' accounts. He is considered the authority by Indian Tantra Sadhakas themselves. Rajesh Nandi recommends his book for a scholarly perspective. If you are just an outsider who is curious to know about Tantra, then his books are the go-to authority. Context, not anatomy. What do you mean? Now I will also sleep on floors. You are saying that they used to sleep on floors for context. Why? I had heard because of anatomy as well. Elaborate a little. Okay. Apart from its great doctrine of Shakti, the main significance of the Shakta Tantra Shastra, and see, now the question is that people who are already believers know all these things. The question is, how do we convince non-believers or the hardcore atheists who think they still are in the Hindutva side as well, which actually Jesai Deepak made me think really hard. That he said that, are you on the Hindutva side just because you want to win a debate, or just because you think Marxists have stupid debates? There are many well-meaning people on the Hindutva side like that. But at the end of the day, what you are fighting for is not even going to survive if you don't believe in it. And now, how to believe? Not just imagine that if you do this, therefore you'll get a great girlfriend or get a great job, etc. No. Go through the procedures as claimed by these people. Go through all the discipline, rigors, and then see what happens. When you say anatomy, you actually mean context. Acha. So, and even atheistically speaking, if you do any one particular thing, and especially elaborate things like yagyas, etc., or any basic mantra jap or daily small puja, that discipline is going to lead to great things anyway, even in the atheistic sense. But after you try that for a while, and if you do see great things happening to you, of course it needs to be according to your tendencies, your character, etc. So a guru is preferable. But if not anyone else, try Bhairava or Ganapati, because anyone can approach them. See if good things happen. And I can say that I have been doing the bare minimum, and good things have been happening. Someday I'll elaborate on these things. I'm Shastri saying, so Acharyas follow the old traditions to adopt the same context of the rishis who wrote the sutras. Bhashyas come from adopting the same context and positions as the authors who wrote the sutras. Yeah.
I think it's anatomy, it aligns the body posture, even for meditation posture does matter. Yeah, so actually basically both of these points are true here, correct here. But let no one take any statement from anyone, myself included, blindly, without examining and testing it. Exactly. I am only concerned to state the facts as I know them. It is man's prerogative to think. The Sanskrit word for man comes from the root man, to think. Those who are Shaktas may be pleased at what I have said about their faith. It must not, however, be supposed that a doctrine is necessarily true simply because it is old. There are some hoary errors. As for science, its conclusions shift from year to year. Recent discoveries have so abated its pride that it has considerably ceased to give itself those potential airs which formerly annoyed some of us, okay? They have stopped giving itself those pontifical airs, okay, which formerly annoyed some of us, okay? वो arrogance थोड़ा चला गया है ये बोल रहे हैं. But you see, this is the fall of Shaktism in Bengal even, no? Otherwise, why is it being given the award of the very reason that Durga Puja in Kolkata has been awarded by UNESCO as a World Heritage? Do you know why? We read that in a M. Shastri, you all were not my subscribers back then. We had discussed this in a live stream long back. That the people from UNESCO said, it was a professor of anthropology who was, I guess, one of the judges or something. He said that we are considering the Durga Puja as a cultural heritage, world heritage, because it has moved beyond its denominational and religious identity and is now a cultural festival. What the hell is the difference between a cultural festival and a denominational festival? Culture कहाँ से आता है religion और एक faith system से बाहर? Now, यहाँ पे faith system बोलने से एक problem technically आ जाता है कि Hinduism is not a random belief and therefore not exactly a faith system. It's an experiential system. But for our purposes, let's consider it has something to do with concepts of God or supreme being, supreme power, etc. But ये सब के बाहर culture कहाँ से आता है? Unless you are saying just how I wash my mouth, that's my culture. That's not just your culture. And that's not Durga Puja at least. But the people who appealed for it were such people. One was a famous Bengali elderly woman, and the other was the guy who passed out from presidency Bengali department. He's a TMCP guy. He's a legit scholar, but people like them told the world that Durga Puja is a cultural festival that has moved on from its denominational and religious identity, and therefore please give us a World Heritage ka upadhi. But the problem is the consequence of that is azan inside Durga Puja pandal. M. Shastri is saying, hence you can accurately ascertain their talking points. Your bhashya holds your arguments better. Yeah, it is similar to say to think like a caveman, you become a caveman. Yeah. Recent discoveries have so abated its pride that it has considerably stopped giving itself those pontifical airs which formerly annoyed some of us. Most will feel that if they are to bow to any master, it should be to a spiritual one. A few will think that they can safely walk alone. Philosophy again is one of the noblest of life's pursuits, but here too we must examine to see whether what is proposed for our acceptance is well founded. The maxim is current that there is nothing so absurd that it has been held by some philosopher or another, okay? The maxim is current that there is nothing so absurd but that it has been held by some other philosopher or some philosopher or another, okay? Don't consider anything good just because some philosopher has said it. We must each ourselves judge and choose. थोड़ा individualism का भी महत्व दिखाया जा रहा है यहाँ पे. And if honest, none can blame our choice. अरे बार glitch क्यों हो रहा है? We must put all to the test. We may here recollect the words of Shruti. Shrotavya mantavaya. Okay. Shrotavya mantavaya nidhi dhyastivaya. Nidhi dhyasitavya. Nidhi dhyasitavya. Shrotavya mantavaya nidhi dhyastivaya. Listen, reason and ponder. Oh, this is why Hinduism
doesn't create stupid people. This is why even the God believing Hindus end up being great mathematicians and scientists. This is why it breeds a culture of contemplating, pondering, reflecting, srotavya, mantavya, and nididhyastivaya, whatever that pronunciation is, nididhyasitavya. Listen, reason, and ponder. I am going to underline this really big. Listen, reason, and ponder. What a great way to learn, no? Instead of mugging things up. For as Manu says, Manu Smriti, yastarka nanu, yastarke nanu sandhatte sa dharmam veda netara. He who by discussion investigates, he knows dharma and none other. End quote. He who by discussion investigates, he knows dharma and none other. Ultimately, there is experience alone, which in Shakta speech is Saham. She I am. End to the chapter. Kya likha hai? Listen, reason, ponder, Shastrarth. Yeah. This was a great chapter. I need to take pictures of some of these pages and send to a lot of people. This was very satisfying. What a great book. This book has been worth the money. What a big book. See, this is pretty tall, okay? Giant book. And also so thick. Okay then, thank you for joining the live stream, guys. Good night. See you soon.